to build anything of significance, all you need is trust and a network. So if you have those two things, you can get everything else. If you've got trust and you've got a network, then you can fundraise for that idea. You can improve that idea. You can find a co-founder. If you're an artist, if you got trust and a network, you can find a great manager. If you're a manager, you got trust and network, you can find great artists. You can find great collaborators on every project. Your first recruits to your team, trust and a network. But then he followed it up with this banger where he said, but if you don't have one, then the other won't matter.
James,
born ready, buddy.
How are you doing, man?
Dude, so pumped to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited to have you here. It's a little bit of a different conversation that we're going to have because you, my friend, you from Silicon Valley, right? But the journey is way deeper than that. And to be honest with you, I'm just going to read this bio that you have over here because there's a lot and I don't want to miss anything, all right?
Dude, if it's too long, I'm going to take a nap.
No. Listen, it's not going to be long. But people have to understand who I'm speaking with. And this is James Beshara. He's invested in more than 150 companies across AI, consumer, wellness, and enterprise, and is ranked the number 2 angel investor globally on Angel List. Number 2. Wild.
Number 1's a great mentor of mine, Elad Gil.
Is he? Okay. His angel portfolio includes companies like Gusto, Mercury, and OpenAI. Not only that, but James is a founder, creator, podcaster, and musician, which is important to talk about as well. So as a founder, James has built companies including Apt, Side Dish, Tilt, which was acquired by Airbnb, and Magic Mind, which is now a proud sponsor of the Manager's Playbook. And we'll talk about just how we met and how this all came about a little bit later.
So glad we get to encourage what you do because this podcast rocks.
Thank you so much, man. Well, 3 of the companies have reached valuations of over 100 million, with his 4th well on its way to another $100 million valuation. Not too bad, my friend. Not too bad. He's also the host of philosophy-driven podcasts like Yoga for Your Intellect and The Daily Vedantic. And you also make music under the name Open State, creating scientifically designed music to help people shift into states of focus and flow. James has been featured in the New York Times, Forbes, CNN, Bloomberg, and Time, and you've spoken at the Harvard Business School, Stanford, Y Combinator, and the World Bank. And you now live in sunny Malibu with your wife, 3 daughters, and the pup, Wendell.
That's right.
James, welcome.
Dude,
man.
Mauricio, this is such a blast. And it's so fun. I never get involved where I'm like, we have to sponsor this podcast. But I shot a note to the team after we met because I guess I've been listening to this pod for like 2 years.
Wow.
And I never get involved, like I said, but I was like, dude, this is such a podcast for all creators. It's helped me so much. We were just talking before we started.
Yeah.
Where there's some episodes where it has been like Charlie Rocket. I mean, so many nuggets.
Yeah.
One after another. I still quote from that episode.
It's so after this episode here, Charlie's coming back on for a sequel, which is we're talking about it here for the first time. So he's coming back for a part 2. So I'm excited.
Chris Anacute as well. Amazing. Dude, he
incredible.
Was
given so much value.
Unleashed.
Yeah.
It was probably a year ago.
Yeah.
Dude, I could spend the first 30 minutes of our conversation just talking about the value that you bring. Now everybody's kind of waking up to, but you bring by shining a light on these other voices like Chris's. That episode, both episodes he's done with you are phenomenal.
Well, I just find that these people are good folks who are incredibly open to just speak about the business in a very open way. And just based off of their experiences, what has worked, what hasn't. They're not afraid to talk about the things that haven't worked. They're not afraid to talk about their experiences in the music business that weren't great, but are also so willing to give so much information to a large group of individuals who are trying to find answers in this business, in the music business. Which leads me to why I wanted to have a conversation with you, because you are an artist. You are a creator. You are a founder. I would say you are in the upper echelon. What's really interesting about you, and that I think makes you a cut above the rest, when it comes to folks that I speak to on a regular day basis is that you do a lot of this, if not all of what you do and have done, as what I read in this bio, with effort. It seems effortless. And it's something that you talk about as well. And I really want to start there because I think the value here, in this music business, independent artists especially, and I don't want to negate those who are at a record label, right? Or artists that are on a record label. There is a lot that has to get done on an everyday basis. And it can be strenuous. You are creating music. You're figuring out marketing. You're figuring out distribution. You're figuring out advertising. On top of that, you got to understand your brand. There's a lot that happens here, right? And I think that you're the perfect person to speak to when it comes to figuring out how to do this and do this where you're not exhausting yourself. And one thing I hear you talk about is effortless effort. So I'd love to start the conversation there because I think there's a lot we can learn from someone like you who is native to Silicon Valley, from my understanding, and applying this into those who are on their journey in the music business.
Yeah, and it is such a wild contrast between Silicon Valley and down here in LA. And I knew that before we moved here, I guess 6 years ago, like 10 minutes into COVID with our little kids. I was like, San Francisco is cold. We can't go anywhere or we can't go in any of the buildings. We go outside to the park to leave the house for 20 minutes and the kids are so cold they want to go home. So I was like, I think we need to go to warmer weather. And my wife and I were from Texas originally. So we came down here and I had already known a few years before because I had built out Airbnb Music, which was right before COVID. We built out this massive platform for over 100 concerts a week in really cool, unique, bespoke spaces like castles, recording studios, the beaches, things like that. Houseboats, like really cool, intimate venues for usually around 60, 70 people for the long tail of artists that were struggling to find an audience. And we had the audience. Like LA has 70 million people a year will come through from Airbnb in Southern California, and LA is the predominant. I'd say 50, 60% is just LA. So that's a lot of people from Airbnb coming through the city every year. It's a crazy amount. So one of the things that we were thinking about was, man, we have this audience that want to go do cool things, and let's connect them with artists and musicians throughout the world. But LA was a huge hub of that. And when I would come down, I would see just how disconnected the musicians, artists, even artists with 2 billion streams, how disconnected they'd be from their peers, how they wouldn't share information. And maybe this resonates with you, where you'd have these teams and these clusters of teams that would have no idea what the best practices were, much less what the other artists were doing. And they would kind of figure something out, some wrinkle in the playbook, and kind of keep it to themselves.
In the music business?
In the music business.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because my entire career I've been pretty open with my information. So I never approached the business that way. And I guess I found people, or I just don't remember wasting my time with those who didn't want to provide me information. And I found those who were willing to give information to me. I spent a lot of my early days in the music business out of this nonprofit organization called the Remix Project, where it was nothing but education about the music business. And so many people have come from the Remix Project. If you're familiar, then you're familiar. Yeah. And I've talked about it a couple of times. But that was kind of just my ethos. And it was my approach to this whole thing.
And still is. I mean, that's the beauty of Manager's Playbook. Yeah.
Yeah. So but I do know what you're talking about, because I mean, it does happen in this business where we're pretty closed off. And I've heard you talk about this. It's just like Silicon Valley's the complete
everybody's
opposite.
Sharing everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. In fact, Chris Anakute, I think one of the great things about his episode on here that I think everybody that was listening, we all appreciated, was he was sharing all of these things that are typically secrets behind closed doors that
it's like taboo to talk about.
Yeah, taboo to talk about. And then you're like, wait, that's what this right. Artists they've been utilizing. And it's very different than the advice that's been given. I mean, it's the beauty of this podcast in general. But that episode is a perfect example where someone leaves the absolute top echelon of this industry and is able to talk freely about it because it's no longer tied to a major label that's utilizing those aspects of a playbook. And in Silicon Valley, what is so interesting is you discover something new, like a way to get 10% more energy in the day. The first thing you do is go write a blog post about it, and you share it with everybody. And then it gets to there are these forums. One of them's called Hacker News, where you just see like the best practices on everything each day. And it's developers. And a lot of this is born from developer community in general, the maker community. They're hyper connected. They're obviously living in, in these digital spaces.
Hence the term like open source.
Exactly. Open source. And they're sharing these things constantly because it quite literally benefits everybody.
Yeah.
You build some unique feature, you need to share it. It needs to get used, and then maybe it gets absorbed into that open source project. So you're constantly finding these optimizations, sharing them, whether it's in building software or whether it's, Hacker News will have aspects on how to run better one-on-ones, how to market your business, enterprise or consumer better, how to handle raising a Series A, B, or C, or how to hire a CEO. All of these things are so wildly shared and discussed. And I would get dinner on Melrose with friends that at the time had just crossed 1 billion in streams, and there's a 3-piece band, and they were fighting with each other constantly. And the manager, the 5 of us would get dinner, and it was honestly like mediation. And a big part of it was all of the pressure and stress of a second album or a tour schedule. And then I'd ask them, like, what does your calendar look like? And like even just the basics of, I wouldn't even call them like biohacking basics, but in the last decade, just completely table stakes things for managing one's creativity and flow state.
Mm-hmm.
It would be completely foreign to them.
Okay. So
what
are some of these examples?
An example would be wake up every morning at the exact same time.
Okay, not go to sleep at the exact same time.
Matters a whole lot more of what time you wake up. Waking up every morning at the same time, that kickstarts your 24-hour circadian rhythm.
Okay.
So your circadian rhythm that will dominate your energy throughout the day and your energy throughout the night, and kicks off how tired you are or how restful your sleep is.
Mm-hmm.
That starts the moment you wake up is the time that you start to sync that up day to day. And it's a 24-hour circadian rhythm.
Mm.
If you wake up every morning at the same time, then you set this cascade of all this biological, beautiful, systemic responses to when you wake up, you could be in flow within 15 minutes, you're feeling great, versus waking up at 6 a.m. one day, 9 a.m., sleeping until 11, then going back to 6 a.m., it might take you 3, 4, or 5 hours to feel like you're like, okay, now I'm in a groove. And for 3, 4, 5 hours, you're like, I feel so out of it. And the last thing you want to do is work.
Yeah.
And that's like that's in the last probably 5 years, that's become table stakes for any founder, creator in Silicon Valley, at least the ones that go to these forums, they see this type of advice often.
Fascinating. So, okay, so what about, let's say the creators, the artists, right? A lot of artists love to make music into the late hours of the night, right? So they're working 4, 5, 6 a.m. in the morning sometimes. And we're talking about the greatest artists in the world. Does it apply for them as well in terms of like, so if you say you end your day 6 a.m., some managers are going to be extremely pissed that I'm talking about this right now because they can't get a hold of their artists for like throughout the day. Mm. But at the same time, that means that they're not hearing from their artist, which is sometimes, helpful to get through your day.
Maybe that's why they're making music at night. Yeah,
maybe. But so if they're going and they're working till 7 a.m., you're telling me if they wake up, or if 8 a.m., if they wake up at 4 p.m. every single day, it's going to regulate and that'll be okay.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has to do, and I want to be careful with the idea that there's a whole lot of generic advice. The only generic advice for creators, for founders, for someone managing a team is that there's very, very little generic advice. Like everything is case by case. But this is biological advice that applies to any and all creators. That the time that you wake up, by the time you get to day 7, day 8, you don't need an alarm clock. You hit a stride in your flow within 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And you'll do that. You'll make the best art you've ever created in a very sustainable way. maybe in acute short spurts, you make amazing art for 3 days straight. And maybe you write, maybe you put an entire album together in 2 weeks through a sprint and you're all over the place.
Uh-huh.
But productivity, and this is another thing that we talk a lot about as founders and investors from the Silicon Valley circles, is that productivity should be measured in years and decades. Should not be measured in hours or days.
Right.
And if you want decades of fruitful creation, then it's the only thing that's king is your habits.
Right. So what are some other habits or some other things that are table stakes in Silicon Valley that could be applied over here?
I love this topic. And I think it'll apply to maybe any listener that's in this creative space. But and again, on that last point, you got to do the calculus on what that time is for you. But you're just working against every ounce of your biology when you're just saying, no, I'm just going to wake up at different times each day.
Yeah.
But some of the other things that I love when it comes to productivity, focus, flow, and when I talk about this effortless effort, so across 3 companies and 3 little kids and making music and 2 philosophy podcasts, at the end of the day, that effortless effort comes down to 3 things: people, practices, and tools. And a lot of this, the generic side will end after that, because you got to decide, well, what is your creative domain? What makes sense for you in that domain? But the generic side of this for anyone in any creative domain is starting with people. Like there is no isolated solo genius.
Right.
Like that is a total myth. Brian Eno talks about this famously when he talks about scenius. Have you heard of this concept?
No.
So he would talk about how Bob Dylan in Duluth, Minnesota would not have become Bob Dylan. He needed to be in the West Village and in the scene of other amazing creative giants. And it pushed him. He quite literally stole songs from his friends. But it pushed him to heights that now we know Bob Dylan, the whole world knows who Bob Dylan is. And the mistake is to think that it's an isolated genius that got to those heights.
Right.
And it's never, you know this.
Yeah, I know this. Yeah, being
coming
in the
from
business.
Toronto, coming to LA, like.
Yeah. The presentation of it can be, especially if you're talking about Bob Dylan, is he's a genius because it feels very soloist when it comes to him and how he approached everything.
And quite literally, House of Rising Sun, he stole that from his friend. And then you have greats like Robbie Robertson that adds guitar, takes him and the band to heights that really elevate Bob Dylan. Those are just 2 examples within 10 seconds you can think of. But then you factor in 100 other untold examples that were all invaluable, not just like helpful, but invaluable of being in the scene of the West Village. Same for Silicon Valley, same for music or entertainment in LA.
Yeah.
And there's each city has the pockets of people that you can gravitate towards if you can't go to one of these international hubs. But the scene matters so much.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break from the pod because if you are an artist or you manage artists, you already know getting music out fast and getting paid matters. That's why I tell people about DistroKid. DistroKid lets you upload unlimited songs to Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, Instagram, all the major platforms for one low annual fee. No per-release charges, no hidden cuts. You keep 100% of your earnings. And for managers, this is big. You can move fast, drop singles, test records, build momentum without waiting around or burning budget on distribution fees every time. They've also got tools that actually help you grow, like automatic splits so everyone gets paid correctly, hyperfollow pages to share your release links, and analytics that make sense. Bottom line, if you're serious about building artists the right way, DistroKid is a no-brainer. Go to distrokid.com and get your music live today. The link is in the description below. Now let's get back to the pod.
So when I talk about people or practices or tools, the people, when the first thing is find the scene.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
That's going to put everything.
Totally agree.
On, you're going to grease the wheels on anything you're trying to do if you're in the right scene.
I agree with you on that. I feel like that's imperative still to this day. I mean, for me, it was incredibly important when I was in Toronto to find that scene. Right. And
how did you find it?
Great question. I don't know. I'm a pretty I just like to research. And so it's just at one point, you know, we have access to the internet. And actually, if I really am trying to remember clearly, I went to school with somebody. His name is Eric Sim. I think this is as far back as I can remember when it comes to this. This is 2003. And he was pretty deeply integrated in the scene and knowing a lot of local rappers, but also had like, we went to film school together, but also had a incredible knowledge of film, right? And his father owned one of the biggest video rental companies in Canada. It was called Sim Video. And so, but he was really intertwined in the scene. And so he introduced me to a few people, one of those people being Aaron A., who was a director. And at the time, I would say a few years later, Aaron A. started to do all the music videos for Nelly Furtado. So Aaron A. became one of my, essentially one of my mentors. And then he introduced me through, and so that was kind of how I started to get myself more ingrained into the scene. And then a couple of years later at best, that's when I get introduced to the Remix Project. Jerome Cruin, who's a director, asked me if I wanted to come shoot some behind the scenes for this commercial they were doing on one of the founders, Gavin Shepard. And I said, sure. And because I've heard of the Remix Project, I'm like, I know that this is the spot where I need to be, because this is, to me, in my mind, is the central hub of how this local thing is gonna go to the world globally. And so as soon as they told me and I had that opportunity, I was like, yes. And I never left. I stayed there. My company, Matteruk, grew from there 5 or 6 years. We operated out of that space until we got too big. I introduced Jessie Reyes, who I ended up managing for almost a decade. She got into the program, you know, the rest is history. I started managing her, et cetera, et cetera. And that was like a really important part. So we were very much in the scene and of like who was doing what, from a local level all the way to a global level. There was a lot of ties to OVO, still to this day.
How long did it take for you to break into that scene from
me
when you started? Yeah.
I think it's like from when I started in the music video world, from like my passion, I don't know, I guess you would say 25 years since I was a kid.
When you got to Toronto?
Well, I was born and raised in Toronto.
Okay,
right?
when you said 2001?
So from 2003, probably 6 or 7 years, because there was me leaving film school and going into sales. I did sales for 5 years. And that was like a back and forth of like door knocking, and which I wouldn't trade for the world, because that's how I learned how to build, you know, and how to sell, to sell and how to build businesses. It was an important part of my understanding how to speak to people and communicate. Where you were just talking off camera about establishing rapport, I learned that all from sales.
Dude, it's the one of my friends. It's an artist that caught lightning in a bottle for 3-4 years, and we worked with him. Airbnb Music, we would do a handful of big concerts each year, and caught lightning in a bottle. And then after that, it's been radio silence. And I remember him saying this thing of like, "Don't pitch." Oh, I never pitch. Like he would say these things like, never pitch. It's always like, hey, can you quit pitching for 1 second?
No, I pitch all day.
Dude, and I'm like,
I pitch all day. Yeah.
If you caught a wave and you're just like riding that wave, you didn't have to do much to catch it, then yeah, you don't have to pitch. But if you want to make waves, if you've got to create things from scratch, and it's been a pretty silent 7-8 years from this friend that wants to create a whole lot more than he is, you've got to learn to pitch and sell and communicate. And that's, at the end of the day, it is just communicate what's in your head.
Somebody's got to be able to sell it. Yeah, absolutely. To me, the idea of even pitching, even when it comes to social media, is every single time you post something on your IG, on TikTok or YouTube, that's a pitch to the world that you need to listen to my music. You need to watch my content. That's myself. That's me knocking on the door. That's everything right here from a phone, and shooting that content and putting it out to the world, or putting out a song. But then when you go and you have out in the wild and in real life and you have conversations, it's not necessarily pitching it's
not pushing.
No. Yeah,
right.
You try not to come off like a used car salesman. It's not about that. I think people get that confused, but you are selling something. In every conversation, someone's buying and someone's selling, in my opinion, all the time, right? It just depends who is who in that conversation, especially if you're trying to move your artist forward, or if you're an artist, your artistry forward. Right?
Yeah, and when it gets to, it actually takes us nicely to the practices side of things. On the people side, one is being in the right scene, and then two is collaborating like crazy.
Yeah.
Like every project that I have, out of all those projects, and including 150 investments, I'm at inbox zero and to-do list zero probably 4 times a day.
That's great.
I was on it before the drive here, and I played with my kids until like from probably 8:30 to 10 a.m. And now because summer just started, so I'm playing with them in the morning before they're leaving at 10. So it's like, oh, for this hour and a half, I'm going to play with them, and then from like 10 to 11, just knocking out whatever accumulation had taken place. But that people side of things, I ended up starting this company called Apt, which you touch on, that is the world's first AI-powered personality test and career coach, because the collaboration piece is not like knowing the right people. It's actually knowing yourself. That is the most important thing, is to know yourself.
Which we in the music business, people always talk about that as authenticity.
Yeah, that's you. You know that people throw that term around a lot, being authentic, and they're not authentic.
Correct.
Like
I don't even think people understand. They know what that means when they say that.
Yeah, I think they say it because they're like, "Oh, this is the thing to say." This is the thing to say. It's like the completely hilarious irony of using the term, because you're like, "Oh, this will play," so I'm going to use the word being authentic.
Right.
And part of that, I think some people might think it's like being emotional, saying what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Being candid, being vulnerable. Dude, being authentic is like, that stuff that's dressing. But being authentic is knowing, this is my zone of genius. This is the thing that at 6 years old, I just had a knack for. Like my 5-year-old, our middle daughter, she's 5 now. When she was 6 months, I'm so glad it was our second daughter, because our first daughter, if it was her, I wouldn't have known that this was unique. But at 6 months, when music would come on, her body would just shake. Face wouldn't even register what music, she didn't know what music was, and her body's just shaking to it. Really good feel for a beat. And our oldest daughter didn't have that. Our youngest daughter doesn't have that. And when I'm talking about knowing yourself, it's like knowing down to the DNA level what you are wired for.
Yeah.
Having that zone of genius and approaching it with a sense of surrender of like, well, okay, that's the zone of genius. Like in my 20s, I wanted to be the founder, creator. I wanted to just do everything I could to take a shortcut to being on the cover of magazines, ego engineering shortcut to validation, and people saying like, man, this is a really smart, creative person. And it was really just selfishly motivated. And I remember thinking like, man, I really like helping other people create.
Right.
And there was this reframing probably at 28, 29, after failure, I was like, what do I want to be on the cover of these magazines for? What do I want to be the face of anything for? It's just, I want the validation and the pat on the back that tells me I can keep doing it. But like, if I don't need that validation, if I'm just approaching it from what do I want to do so badly that I would do it if the only reward is that I got to do more of it. And I think this is the question that every creator, every human can ask. Like, what's the thing that you want to do more of, that you feel so energized by, that you would do it if the only reward is that you got to do more of it? Maybe it's this podcast for you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's you want to make music because, man, you can't stop yourself. You want to do it even if the only reward is not financial, it's not validation, it's not influence, status, it's just you got to do more of it. That question really helps you hone in on, okay, what are you wired for? What's the thing that energizes you? What is the thing where you do it and you lose track of time?
Mm-hmm.
And if you find that, then you know, and this is the greatest aspect of it, is, okay, there are these things that I'm not great at. I'm going to find people where their zones of genius fill those voids. So for Magic Mind, I started out in my kitchen, and we've taken it now. We crossed 100 million in sales like 3 months ago. And that I took it to like 1 million in sales. And then I brought on a co-founder. And I really just, when I think about these crazy stat lines of this company, like even hearing congrats, I'm like, man, that is the team that can do what I'm not wired to. I'm great at something 0 to 1, but I'm not great at all of the logistics, all the operational overhead. I look at a spreadsheet and I go cross-eyed. But my co-founder, William, and I knew how to find a co-founder because I'd failed at that a few times in my 20s. But in my 30s, I was like, I got to find somebody that looks at these aspects of the business that I go to sleep when I think about them, that they get energized by those. And that's that people section is, 1 is being in the right scene, 2 is knowing yourself, and then 3 is finding, and that's the key to that's the reason to know yourself, is to find the compliments to help you in every single thing. And apt is, if people, I'll create a promo code for listeners, TMP, we'll do TMP 50, and it'll just be 50% off for people to, actually, you know what? Let's make it TMP 100. So anybody coming from this podcast, get it for free, because it's.
Oh, thank you, man.
It is so valuable. It is what I learned in my late 20s was, I don't want to go 10,000 feet forward. I want to help 1,000 people go 1,000 feet forward.
Yeah.
That's what energizes me. So whether it's Magic Mind, whether it's apt, helping people find what they're wired for, whether it is investing in creators, I realized, like, no, I'm the person to the right, just giving them the encouragement they need or insights that they need to create. Even the music that I make, Open State, it's literally flow state music.
Right.
I made music for 25 years, never got into it as much as I have the last 3 years, until I started to see all of this neuroscience research around, man, the right techniques can get people into flow state within 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's the music I'm going to make. And it's so funny. Then I started to market it, pitch it, because it had a mission that was aligned with me behind it.
Yeah, exactly. This is something that you truly cared about.
And really cared that you could care about it. Anybody that I'm with, I'm like,
yeah.
The friend that said, I don't pitch, I think he meant, I don't pitch poorly. Maybe he meant I'm allergic to people pitching poorly. Because pitching, this gets into the practices bucket of these things that are effortful on the outside, but they become effortless on the inside. That what makes it effortless is not, like you probably learned this in sales. First step in sales is questions.
Mm. Yeah, qualify your customer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like pitching poorly is pushing. Right. I'm going to come in with my ideas, and I know Mauricio needs these ideas. Pitching well is saying, okay, I got these 2, 3, 4 different solutions, but I don't know what Mauricio needs. I don't even know if he needs any of these 3 or 4. Right. I don't know, if you're a manager and you've got a great artist, dude, the first 10, 15 minutes of the conversation, ask question after question after question.
Yep.
And you'll get the script.
Yeah.
Or minute 60.
You'll uncover the unknowns for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break from the pod, because if you're an artist, producer, or songwriter, you could be leaving serious money on the table. Every time your songs are streamed, viewed, or played online, it generates publishing royalties. But collecting these royalties globally means registering with over 100 societies around the world. Many artists never see that money. Cosign fixes that. Powered by Cobalt, the publisher behind Max Martin, Stevie Nicks, and Childish Gambino, Cosign registers your songs globally with a single submission, collects every cent you're owed, and even has direct deals with streaming platforms to cut out middlemen wherever possible to help you keep more of what you've earned. And unlike traditional publishers, Cosign is built for flexibility with no long-term commitments. Now, Cosign is a selective platform, but it's easy to apply, and the application is 100% free. If you're ready to start collecting your global publishing royalties, apply today at the link in our video and episode description. And to learn more about how music publishing actually works, check out the TMP Publishing Playbook in partnership with Cosign across TMP's YouTube and socials. Now let's get back to the pod. Speaking of which, so I want to double back on something that you said, because you failed time and time again. Let's be clear. You don't come from a family of well-off means or anything of that nature. You had some tragedy in your life as well. And I know you spent some time in South Africa as well. It was.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a little bit about this stuff that you went?
Sure. Yeah.
Don't mind?
Yeah. I ask this as an interview question all the time. And this is this is something that Silicon Valley really gets right, how to interview. So when you are finding those collaborators.
Yeah, because the co-founder part, I'm so curious.
It's knowing your zone of genius and then uncovering the other zones of genius. One of the most, I'd say the basic thing is the biggest predictor of future performance is past performance. So you find somebody that has shown an extraordinary past, and then they're probably going to be great for you. If it's just like, I'm taking a flyer on this person, whether it's an artist or the manager, whether it's a co-founder and a partner, that's a big gamble.
Yeah.
And you probably see this all the time. Amazing projects blow up just because of a co-founder.
My own, to be honest. Yeah.
Tell us more.
Well, there's been a few different artists that I've managed where it just didn't get to, or I saw something that could be something way bigger than what it was, but I'm taking a flyer on it. I'm taking a chance because I see the talent, but it doesn't work. And yeah, I could place blame on all different reasons as to why, except for myself. But the only way that I can grow through those situations is to put the blame on myself and say, this is my fault. And here's why. Because I ignored the flags of this particular situation without going into who I'm talking about or any of that. And yeah, like here are the flags, but you just want to, you see so much in this potential, the potential of, and it has no prior wins or established wins in the music business, because this is taking an artist and bringing it to prominence, and truly, as a manager, when you have success, I'll say this very candidly, and I don't think I'm the only one who believes this, but when you find success with an artist, as a manager, you think it's replicable with anybody.
Oh, that happens all the time in startup investing.
Does
too.
it as well? And I'll tell you what, it's not the case.
What's a more accurate articulation of what is the case?
I think it's funny when people say you learn more from your failures than your successes. I think that's kind of what you're talking about, or how you knew how to find the right co-founder. I think that's the truth, because I had an insane amount of success with Jesse. And trying to replicate that, knowing that the other artists I'm working with aren't the same. So I never treated everything like a cookie cutter kind of situation. But I just thought that if I applied what I applied to this prior instance to these artists that I'm working with, or these producers, say, then we can make it happen. Completely forgetting that the brand is a human being. And their way of looking at the world is very different from how this artist looked at the world. And sure, I can be a great manager with Jesse, but it doesn't mean that I'm a great manager with just anybody, that I can align with just anybody. This is a special thing that happened over here, and Byron included, who's co-manager with Jesse. Something very special happened here. It was like very egotistical of me to think that I can repeat this easily. Not that it can't be repeated, but easily. Right? And I ignored those things with certain folks that I got into business with, of saying, you know what, the alignment isn't there 100% how it is over here. And decided to go into it, and then, it doesn't work out. And so in some instances, I would call them, not a failure might be a little bit harsh, but I think,
learning lessons.
Learning lessons. Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, and when I say my 20s, it was 3 straight failures with different startups, and I say it with a smile, because it's and I tell creators this all the time. If you don't have experience, you don't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have talent but no experience on how to display that talent, how to find collaborators, you don't have anything.
It's true.
And if you have experience, you have everything.
Yeah.
If you don't have experience, you don't have anything, meaning that, man, you might have a great arm, but if you've never been in the game, if you never put it to test, if you never had, bright lights, if you've got people leaning on you, it's one of our partners with Magic Mind is Matthew Stafford, the quarterback for the Rams. It's just
amazing.
Yeah. He just won MVP. Yes. Magic Mind is the only supplement he took all year, by the way.
Wow.
He has gone on record saying it's the only supplement he took the year that he won his MVP. And then we were like, yeah, we got to start working with this guy. And he said that one of the things that he thinks about most often has nothing to do with accuracy of the arm or throwing the football. He thinks about how to say something in the right way with the right tone in 8 words, fourth quarter, 3 minutes left to a young wide receiver that needs to hear it the right way versus how he might say it in practice.
Right. Okay.
And that nuance, that is like crazy amount of nuance that someone 17 years in the league talks about with a smile, talking about how much thought goes into these crazy nuances that have nothing to do with a throwing arm.
The athletic ability.
The athletic ability has nothing to do with the team situation, a contract situation, whether he's got whether he's got accolades or not. I mean, that is the nuance that you get from experience. He's playing like 5 games of chess in his head, fourth quarter, 3 minutes left. And it's the same for any creator that makes it to a high level. They're playing multiple games of chess.
Yeah, because you put in your, Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours at that point, right? So as a professional quarterback, you know what to do when you show up there. Like the mechanics are all there because of that zone of proximal development. Nobody's got to show you how to do this thing. You're an expert at this. Now, what can you do when you're in that quote unquote zone? That's when the fun starts, because now the world really opens. It's like when they say, when you're no longer a rookie in the league of, let's call it the NFL, like the game slows down completely for you.
Yeah.
Because you're in the zone.
Yeah.
But now you're playing these other games and making sure that you're getting the rest of your team in the zone. And as you mentioned, and that makes a lot of sense. The only way that you could do that is with experience.
I hope we talk about flow state today, because that's a topic
course.
I love talking about. But that's with that experience, and I think from one direction it looks like failure. But from the other direction, when you're on the other side of it, you're like, man, I just got a PhD in life and myself and how it all works, business or creating art. But getting that experience is so key that I'll tell founders, like, just get started with your first startup, get it out of the way. For artists, for Open State, I created a burner brand just to get really good at a release schedule and understanding the algorithms for Spotify.
Okay.
Like, it was just probably 18 months of a burner brand where I was like, all right, this is just going to be an education. Maybe it'll take 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, get better at production. But also, this is like how I'm going to take my startup chops and apply it to making music. And it was just a burner brand, meaning like a fake brand. Whereas, like, this is just the experience, just to learn how the algorithm works, just to learn, obviously, a release schedule, build out a great collaborative team. Like, I love working with a team that I work with now, Eli Goss, Jonathan Stein, Nectarios, that I love giving shout outs for, and they help with whether it's marketing, mix and master, and whether it's like production chops for certainly adding in guitar, different instruments that I don't play. Yeah. And I would not have even known these aspects if it weren't for the burner brand of like, okay, keep running into this aspect of production that I just cannot quite master, or honestly, the release schedule and how demanding the release schedule is for something like Spotify. There was 6 months there.
That's an interesting approach, to be honest with you.
The burner brand is, and I tell founders this all the time, just get your first startup out of the way. If you're starting,
take the L on the startup?
Yeah, take an L. It's literally going to be cheap. Maybe you spend 25 or 110K on a company that goes south. That's less than an MBA. And shit, you're not getting an MBA, you're getting a PhD. The neural pathways, we know this scientifically, the neural pathways that get created from doing instead of reading, hearing about someone else, like the neural pathways that'll get created from someone listening to this episode, it's basically nothing. And it's kind of dangerous. for anybody listening to this, this is the dealer saying, careful with the supply, because it is like consumptive. It's like productive consumption.
I agree.
Where you listen to 100 TED Talks, you will get nothing out of it. At least the modicum that you'll get out of it is nothing compared to what you'd get from doing.
Yes.
And I think we can get in these traps where it's like, you know what? That's the most productive thing I could do right now is to listen to an hour and a half of an amazing podcast. And I've gotten so much out of this podcast, but it's really just like, that's a great way to articulate the experience I had when that thing blew up in my face. Or that's a great reinforcement of that thing that I paid for with some blood, sweat, and tears, and I'm going to avoid on this Tuesday because that guest or Mauricio is mentioning that in this episode. But if I didn't have that experience, it wouldn't map to the neural pathways. It's literally about like 1/100th the neural pathway that gets created from touching the stove and getting burnt.
Yeah.
Versus someone telling you, hey, watch out, don't touch that stove, it'll burn you.
Yeah, absolutely. I say it all the time. I say like, all the information is on the internet for one, but you don't have to go to the internet anymore. You can come to the manager's playbook. All the information is there, but it's on you to execute. A perfect example of that was even the starting of this podcast. I thought about this idea for 8 years, right? Prior to me starting it, 6 years. And then I finally got around in COVID where I said, I'm really interested in distribution and how it works with content. And I came across Mr. Beast. He had his own version of Squid Games. And I said to myself, this guy did a whole Squid Games on YouTube channel? And it blew my mind because the production value seemed like millions of dollars. I said, I have to pay more attention to this guy because I'm going to learn the algorithm of YouTube through him because I was interested in podcasting. So then I started watching all these interviews and then I got stuck in this habit of just watching how to be good at YouTube without actually creating my own YouTube channel. And so at a certain point, I realized, I'm just afraid to put myself out there. And I'm afraid to do this and to take this next step. And it was like one day just snapped. I was like, what are you doing? You got to start doing this thing because otherwise you're not going to learn it. It's so true. Now the experience is way more valuable than any interview that I could have watched back then. So I couldn't agree more.
All right, everybody, we're going to take a little break because if you're listening and thinking, fuck, I could really use some guidance right now, and you're serious about building your career in the music industry, I'm now offering private strategy sessions. These are fully personalized, just you and me tackling whatever you need in your career. With over 16 years of experience working with artists, managers, and brands, I can help you map out your next moves. Now, whether that's structuring your team, scaling your brand, navigating the industry, even figuring out what steps to take, whether to go to a distributor or to a record label and figuring out what are the best deal points, I can help you with your career with where you're at. You can now book a one-on-one with me through my Calendly, and you can find the link in the description. Now let's get back to the pod.
And if anybody's listening to this that is in that same spot of that productive consumption, they're just consuming. This is fast food.
Yeah.
And again, it's a nuanced topic because I've gotten so much out of this podcast. I mean, this is probably the most instructive thing that I'm starting to turn all of my startup-minded willpower around open state and creating more and more music
that you're making,
that gets people into flow state and I love that the space doesn't really have like a name for the genre yet. It's like before they decided hip hop's going to be the name of the genre. It's some people call it functional music, some people call it music as medicine, some people call it wellness music, but this aspect of being able to click play on Spotify or YouTube and it has a functional benefit to what you're doing, to your life.
The music that you're making.
Open state. I'm like, man, this is how I can help. Maybe it's 10,000 people, but I can help creators move forward and it doesn't cost them anything. Magic Mind, it ain't cheap. Apt, listeners just got a promo code, but it's about $30 if people don't have a promo code. But I can make this music easily and release it and people can listen to it for free. And that reorientation towards making and releasing a shit ton of music. It is so heavily informed through source. Really, it's probably Manager's Playbook, a lot of ChatGPT, and then a lot of learning by doing.
Yeah.
Like that's how important
Good
this
combination.
Yeah, it is a great combination, and that's how important this pod has been. That's why it was so fun when I ran into you in Venice. What was it, like 3 months ago?
Yeah,
But,
we should talk about
yes,
that.
we should. But I want to round. I just want to round that point out by saying it's a nuanced thing to say like this is fast food.
Yeah.
Because this is satisfying.
Right.
When we listen to a podcast like this, and it's better than starvation. But the most nutritious thing by far is putting yourself out there, learning from, call it failure, call it success, but from the learning lessons, but it's just by doing and getting that failure out of the way, getting that L out of the way. Like if a founder comes to me and it's their first startup, dude, I've got 10% the confidence in them versus someone that's like, here's my most ambitious idea.
Yeah.
But I did this. It goes back to that people side of things. The biggest predictor of the future performance is past performance.
Yeah.
You want to see an extraordinary past where people are doing things constantly since they were 15, 16, 18. And then they come see you at 23 and you just ask them what they've been up to. And you're like, dang, this is a very rich past and they haven't blown up yet, but man, I have a feeling that this person's going to keep going until they do. And it goes on that people front. I guess this all got started with my favorite interview question is, tell me about yourself starting before you're 18.
Yeah.
And you get to hear a lot of the breadcrumbs on whether they're a powder keg about to blow up with what they're doing now.
Oh, really? Yeah, interesting. Fascinating.
It's my favorite. I'll be sitting in a cafe and ask somebody that question.
Randomly.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, it's the best. It is for you. Like, tell me about your life. Because you actually haven't talked about childhood much.
No.
But you have done some amazing things. And you were not many things to your name, but not complacent. Tell me about your life before 18.
Oh man. I don't know. I mean, mom and dad, immigrant parents. I was always very creative, I was very into sports. But it's funny because when I was 14 years old, it was one of my best friends actually said this, and I brought it up to him the other day, and he was like mortified that I said this to him because I remember it was clear when I was younger in high school that I was going to do something in the entertainment business because I loved film.
How come?
Because I was skipping class, going to communications tech class, like where my boys are at, and going and making videos and shooting videos. If you knew me in high school, you knew me for three things: smoking weed, carrying a cardboard box because I used to break. I used to be a b-boy. So for a couple of years I was carrying, and making videos and always running around with a camera. Right. So that was always kind of my thing. And I remember when I was like 16, a friend of mine, I'll never forget, in the cafeteria at lunch, a friend of mine said, Ruiz isn't going to be he's going to make the most money in the world, but at least he knows what he's going to do for the rest of his life in the camera. And now in my mind, I was like, I'm going to remember that. And I was funny because today I was talking about this with somebody where I said, in an interesting way, my motivation has always come from people doubting me. I don't know how to operate from I do know, I don't want to say I don't know how to operate from a place of abundance, but when people are always patting on the back, like, you're doing such a great job, it's not comfortable for me. The comfortable place for me is everybody always doubting me because it feels like my entire life I've been doubted. So that's where I draw a lot of my energy from. But I know it's not sustainable. And I'm learning how to rewire that. But that friend...
What gives you the hints that that's not sustainable?
I think that comes from a place of, it's tired. It feels like I get tired,
Comes from a place of separation.
Yeah. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I had this conversation a couple weeks ago with a friend that I think one of the most And in the practices part, I study and I teach this philosophy called Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, which comes from the 4 oldest philosophical texts on the planet. It's the 2 podcasts that like 11 people listen to. But
No.
But I love putting it out there for, if one person gets value, man, honestly, 0, because I get so much value out of putting these conversations around this ancient, it's, in terms of continuous studies, the oldest philosophy in the world.
Yeah.
And the heart of it is that, and it's mapping up to the modern science and quantum mechanics and consciousness studies, that the deep end of the pool, it says there is just oneness.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I are connected. And it's not just quantum mechanics showing that particles from distant parts of the universe are entangled. We have no idea how, but entangled somehow. You and I are entangled, obviously, in this conversation, but something I say to you, and I leave this room, I could be 50 miles away, and it has some impact that then has a cascade 4 weeks later. Yo, James, you mentioned that one thing.
Right.
And actually, my buddy, Dave, he actually is working on this, and that entanglement doesn't stop, even if I'm 1,000 miles away.
Weird that you said Dave, because it was Dave who was talking about this, where I get my motivation from.
No
Strange
way.
that you just said that, yeah.
No way.
Gagoli. He's one of my best friends in the world. And we were talking about where I get my motivation from. We were just talking about in general, but getting there. But anyhow.
There you go. I'm going to leave, and maybe I'll be 10 miles down the road, and it emphasizes some part of the conversation you have with Dave after this.
Yeah.
Or the relationship with him. But that's that oneness between us. It's all one field. Everything is one field. Which that's the super deep end of the pool. So that's not going to be too helpful to people just casually listening to that point. But I say it because whenever we work from a place of I want to prove something to those people, or I'm going to prove something to myself, we immediately separate ourselves from those people.
Mm.
We separate ourselves. One of the worst motivators is I'm going to prove this to myself. And people do this all the time. You can climb Everest.
I do it. My entire career has been like that. A big part of my career has been like that.
And it ultimately drains our energy.
Yeah. Towards the end. And don't get me wrong, though. I've been successful in proving people and myself wrong time and time again. Well, it's not even proving myself wrong, because I know I'm capable of a lot. If I'm talking about me personally, it's more so proving other people wrong. But it's all for what, you know? But what is that for? And I'm not a person who wants to have that kind of energy surrounded around them. I don't find it helpful. I like to have positive interactions with folks. And so I find value in that. And that can be a clash with that idea of I'm going to prove the world wrong. Because, well, then how can I have a healthy relationship with
the world? You can't. That is exactly it. You just nailed it, especially when you get into the territory some people get into, I'm going to prove this to myself.
Yeah.
And we use these conventions, we say this socially, like, I needed to prove it to myself that I can do that. But when you wake up every morning with that approach and that attitude, then you become an enemy to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What's even worse is you start to distrust yourself. When you say, I'm going to prove it to those other people, now you just distrust. You just established a great wall of China of distrust between you and them. Now you're interacting with them.
Yeah.
Shit, it could be with mentors. It could be with industry people that you feel like they're not quite doubting you, or they're not quite believing in you. They have some doubts about you. And you just established a anchor of distrust to them now. And it's even, I think the unhealthiest version is a distrust of ourselves. When we say, I'm going to prove this to myself, so I don't trust myself right now. Part of me thinks I can't do it. But I don't think I think that's a fraction of the story, because I can tell from all of the stories that you'll mention of working with Jesse for a decade, from building this podcast, the relationships with different guests that you had, man, you love collaboration.
Yeah.
And you really love.
I value it.
Yeah, I imagine that's a part of the equation that inspires you to do this work, is not just to prove something to other people, but also and to show the doubters the wrong, but also, man, all of us that get to listen and get these bangers of insights.
Yeah. I don't.
Conversation.
It's an interesting conversation because I think I'm an only child, right? So I was always like yearning for people when I was younger, and my mom was very specific about that. She would make sure that she always wanted to ensure that I had friends around, because I didn't have a brother or sister. And I was kind of the runt in my neighborhood. I grew up in this area. It's like Jen and Weston and Emmett Avenue specifically. But I was like the 4 or 5-year-old outside with all like the 8, 9, 12, 14-year-olds. And it was like 20, 30 of us at any given day. And so it was like I was kind of a bit of a pest, but my mom was always like making sure that I was around people. And so I always, as much as I say that I wanted to prove people wrong, I wanted approval so badly when I was younger. And a part of me probably still does, if I'm being honest.
Honestly, that's a much healthier version. And the progression from proving people that they're wrong is a distrust. Seeking approval is healthier. It's in the right direction of you trust them. You trust those points of validation. And that could be one of the greatest, honestly, it can be a great influence towards service because you're checking in. Hey, am I serving this community?
Right.
Am I serving these people, my coworkers?
Right.
I want their validation. I used to crave that validation in my 20s as well. And part of it was egocentric of, man, I'm insecure. I don't know where I fit, and I want that validation. The other part is
sure, that's true.
Quite beautiful.
True to me too.
Quite beautiful. Of like, I want to make sure that I'm serving. I'm the youngest of 5, so I could only belong if I was serving like the larger. Like if I was even a tiny bit of a pest, brother 5 years older. Beat the hell out of me. Yeah, like literally, like it was so uncomfortable to where I really need to find where can I be useful, and where what is the role that I can play. But that seeking validation is a graduation from proving people wrong because then you at least trust them. But the ultimate ground that I think is the most sustainable, and this is the definition of right action in Vedanta, is that which generates energy.
Okay, so how does somebody find that?
That is being who you truly are. That's surrender. Surrender from validation, surrender from not being driven like a slave by what other people think. Because proving them wrong, you're working for free for how many people?
Yeah.
1,000 people?
True.
Proving them wrong?
Yeah.
Working for approval? You're working for free for how many people? 15 people?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get their approval? Working for yourself, for what you're wired for what energizes you. And by the way, what energizes all of us is serving those around us, finding where we're uniquely useful. Maybe it's not lead singer of the band metaphorically or literally.
Right, which is what
finding your role.
Which is what I wanted to touch on, right? Because it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the artist, but maybe you can serve the artist.
Oh, it's in fact, being who you truly are is your gospel to the world.
Yeah.
And what is so beautiful about being who you truly are is not only does it energize you every day. The definition of wrong action in Vedanta is that which dissipates energy. So, and everybody listening to this knows when they put themselves in a role that's not their wiring, and it drains your energy, and you get burnt. That is
the tough part about that
leading indicator of burnout.
But the tough part of that burnout, I would assume it's the same thing in Silicon Valley as it is in the music industry, is when you are making a sizable amount of bank, but you feeling more than ever, you feel drained. So you realize then, because a lot of people, I think, artists, people come into this business in Silicon Valley, they get into it thinking that they're going to make a lot of money and that's going to change everything for them. It's going to make them feel happy or feel good about themselves. And then when that money comes, they realize still in the same place emotionally that I was prior to, if not even worse, because this didn't bring the happiness that I thought it was going to bring to me. And now you're feeling even more drained. You're like, what is happening? But then it's hard to get away from that as well because you're making so much money. And now it's becomes this, well, I have this lifestyle and I don't want to.
People depend on me.
People depend on me. People, yeah, I'm employing X amount of people, but it doesn't bring me any kind of surrender to the thing that I know is what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. An artist friend of me was saying that the reason they tour so much, he's got 2 kids that, you've got, I think about this all the time of that I want to spend 20,000 hours with them between the ages of 0 to 10. Because
your friend or you
I'm in terms of our 3 little ones.
Yes. Okay.
This personal goal of I want to spend 20,000 hours with our kids before they're 10 years old, because once they're 11, 12, 13, and they want to hang with their friends, you could become a trillionaire and you'll never get that decade back. So that's a high level goal for me that supersedes all the work goals. 20,000 hours with my kids before they're 10. And a friend of mine, I was telling that to him, he goes, God, he's in Venice, and he's really well-known rock band, and he said, man, I'd love to, but there's 50 people that depends on our tours for their finances. I was like, what? I never even thought about that, of the pressure to continue to tour is you have 50 different people that make bank when you're on tour. And so you end up being on tour for 100 dates a year, 150 dates a year. And that's an insane gauntlet, personally. And part of what they're thinking is like, if we just took 2 or 3 years off, there's so many people in the ecosystem that wouldn't get paid. And I think it's partially you're nodding your head of like, it's partial equation.
It is, because I think I've heard artists say that. But that's also being, I think, a little disingenuous. Because then that means that those people can't survive without you.
And yeah, but the part of this was maybe 2 months ago when he said this, and I was thinking like, wouldn't they get other gigs?
Correct. If they're capable individuals, and there's some of the best, and they're going on the road, if you're no longer on the road, I'm sure those capable people will find jobs in other places. So it becomes an excuse for the artist to say that this is why I need to be on the road.
Oh, that's
because
great.
Other people depend on me, but that's not true. There's something else happening.
Dude,
there.
I love that reframing. It's, and I'll mention that too. I'll point my friend to this episode because it's you had mentioned earlier when things hadn't worked out with artists that sometimes you could spend time blaming other people or things around you, but it was always more helpful to find where you were responsible. And
always
a great phrase from one of my mentors that said, "There's always 200% responsibility to go around. Find your 100%."
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's so helpful and valuable to think through. Like, yeah, there is some things that are undeniable that maybe you built a company and then COVID happened. 100% over there.
Yeah.
But find your 100% because you learn nothing if it's like, I'm 10%, but 90% was
absolute nothing.
Yeah.
You need wherewithal. I'm going to name drop here for a second, but Pharrell, I remember him saying this. We were in the studio maybe 4 years ago, and he says he looks for wherewithal in artists, and it really made me think what he meant when he said wherewithal. Like, what
did he mean?
I had to look up the definition and everything because the way that I thought about it was knowing thyself. Making sure you understand who you are so you can present the best version of yourself to the world. Right? So having self-awareness is the easiest way to go about it. The wherewithal to understand how this whole machine works around you as the artist, as the centerpiece of this brand that is going to be communicated out to the world. That's how I understood it. But I really started to think about it in terms of life, of wherewithal. Like, do you have the wherewithal to be a host of a podcast that's going to provide value to the music industry or those aspiring to be in it? Because if I'm honest with myself, and this isn't the role that I'm supposed to be in, then don't do it. But if I do think that I'm rightly equipped because I have great relationships. Randomly run into incredible founders and creators like yourself at Lighthouse and have an incredible exchange of energy, can find the right team to produce something that is of high quality and market it out with great distribution, and I am the right person. Right? But yeah, you gotta execute on those things and figure out whether you can do those things. But I felt like I had the wherewithal to do all that because of my experience, to your point. Which leads me to a question that I want to ask you is, when you're talking to founders and you've invested in 150 companies, what is it that what are there patterns that are repeatable through all of these founders that lets you say, yeah, that's the right guy?
50%, 50% of me wants to say, and it actually ties to the root of the word industry. So, in the music industry, artists are always saying like, it's music and then there's business. Right. Music, they don't want to focus on the industry side of things.
Sure.
The root of the word industry means to persevere with purpose. What the hell are you making art for if you don't care about the industry side? To persevere with purpose. I mean, your technical skill and capability can be through the roof. If you can't persevere with purpose, if you shy away from the industry side, if you shudder at the thought of being industrious with that skill set, then your skill set is worth next to nothing.
Right.
This perseverance through purpose, that is a pattern. So 50% of me wants to answer the question with, you see these breadcrumbs of these people that persevere with purpose. Like each project has such deep purpose to it. The project that they're working on right now has a deep purpose to it. And if people don't have it and they're just waffling around with a technical skill, let's say you've got a great voice, but you have no purpose to how you're sharing that voice. And you're like, I guess it's to make money and to make art because people love artists. And wow, that seems rare. People confuse value with rarity all the time. They're like, oh, if I could just get a record deal, which is rare. My friends are all trying to get one. I've got talent. Maybe that will also have value in my life. And dude, there are a million rare things that have no value in our lives. I mean, like you could put uranium, you could put unobtainium on this table. I mean, I have no value. I have no idea what to do with that. But that aspect of, do they have this history of perseverance with purpose in this current project that they're working on? Does it have purpose? Like there's this record label that I'm helping get off the ground, and the fundraise is just the same. I've helped artists fundraise for their artist projects, and you typically need about $250,000 for a serious artist project. And people have come on this podcast to talk about it. This isn't super rare knowledge to talk about how expensive it is to develop a really serious, sincere effort as an artist project. It's about $250,000. The upside can be huge, but $250,000 sounds like a lot if you're in your bedroom making music. But if you're going to start a food truck company, you'd need about $250,000. Like you can't start a food truck company with $1,700 and ideas. Yeah. You've got to do it seriously. The fundraise for the artists that I've helped raise $200,000, $250,000. The label that's raising $2 million. That is everything comes down to the pitch, the narrative, the reason that you articulate in the coffee shop or in the Zoom meeting, and the reason that you're thinking about at 11 p.m. at night when you have doubts. It's the same. Should be the same. Should be consistent, and it's the purpose. You have that voice. Have you found a purpose for that voice? Like I made music for 25 years and it was all on the side. It was fun. It was something to do with idle time and idle hands. But once I started to see the neuroscience around these different techniques you can add together to decrease stress up to 65% within 3 minutes of exposure, I was like, man, when I was 17, I listened to emo music. Maybe some of the lyrics I could relate to, and it would relieve some stress. But you could actually, in 2026, make music that decreases stress for that 16-year-old or that 66-year-old within 3 minutes of exposure for free, with just globally, instantaneously releasing the music, and they hit play. I was like,
I'm in.
dude, I'm in, and I'm going to start spending 10, 20, 30, 40. Now it's a lot of my time, hours each week making it. So that purpose is, and perseverance with purpose, you see that in a track record of other projects. And I'm sure you see it with artists that really hit a groove. They have something that's calling them versus just, hey, this is something to do, or I've got this talent and I haven't really found the perseverance and purpose. The other thing you ask, like, what is the pattern? 50% of me says that. And then 50% of me says, no one knows anything.
Right.
Like, and I don't mean like 50% of the answer is one or the other.
Right.
I mean, like, I could say one or the other and feel like that's 100% of the story.
Right.
Perseverance and purpose, so integral. And man, as an investor, that's the Hollywood adage of like, in Hollywood, no one knows anything. The co-founder of Lionsgate told me that once, where I was like, what's the secret to a hit movie? And he goes, no one knows anything. I have no idea.
Right. Or else everybody would be replicating it. Same thing in the music industry. How do you
Right.
make a hit? I don't know.
Right. and I think it's ultimately liberating for creators to hear that, because maybe they don't have the track record of purpose and they hear this and they maybe recognize there's value in it, or they're like, there's no one like me. There is no precedent. This doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm 40 making music and releasing on Spotify. There's no precedent for like someone leaving tech. There's literally one. Shout out to Tycho. Tycho left tech and he was working at Adobe and started making music. But I'm like, dude, I don't know anybody that's in this, even remotely in this playbook of leaving tech and starting to make music. But and being 40, but I'm like, dude, that's a hallmark as a startup founder and investor. I love when it's a brand new arc.
Well, when you left tech, so this isn't part of tech. This is CPG, right?
Yeah.
So how long ago did you leave tech?
I left tech 7 years ago. I was just investing.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm just going to invest because it's my 20s and my company before last, it was such a kick to the brain.
Yeah, because you said, and sorry, because to make sure what we're talking about here is there's 3 companies that you've founded that were turned into $100 million valuation companies.
Yeah. The first one didn't stay there.
Talk to me about that. So this is,
Yeah.
because, Magic Mind, talking about open state, there's a lot of things here that you're talking about or that you're creating that is for the benefit of health. And it sounds like to me that, well, you tell it because, you mentioned that there was a lot going on with that first company there.
I learned triple PhD in how not to do it, and a few different lives. Like I had touched on in my 20s, and the most ambitious was a company I built called Tilt, that within 2 years, we took it to about a $400 million valuation, $385 million valuation in 2 years. And I was 26, and then 4 years later, we sold in a fire sale to Airbnb for a fraction of that. And it was a 4-year decline, but really the last 18 months was just...
For how much did you end up selling it for?
We ended up selling it with cash and stock for $55 million.
Okay.
And by the way, when I say that out loud, from my bedroom in Dallas, Texas to Airbnb, I was totally, I was like, hey, not too bad.
Yeah.
But all told, for the expectations that we had set ourselves, for the expectations our investors had invested, especially at that higher valuation, it was brutal. There was no celebration whatsoever.
What happened there? How did you take it to a $400 million valuation?
A lot of vision, a lot of persistence, a lot of purpose, but a lot of selfish, egoistic. Financial engineering and ego engineering were at the heart of what I was doing. I was like, this is going to be a shortcut to being my own boss, to building something of significance that people will know that I'm the creator of, the founder of. And there was a lot of that. But I will say we hit this right time, right place, We're building a financial software that was kind of in between Venmo and Kickstarter. So it was smaller groups sharing expenses, pooling their funds together for $1,500 for a backyard barbecue, or your $1,000 for a fantasy football league, or $350 for a group gift. And it was liked. We got it to a couple million users around the globe, but it wasn't loved. It was basically lukewarm liked instead of loved. One of the biggest lessons I got from that, and this is when you're pursuing your creation out of service, then kind of like what we were talking about pitching, first to pitch well,
Yeah.
to sell well,
Yeah.
it's the first 15 minutes, you're just listening, you're asking questions. I wanted to push this on the world. And it was lukewarm liked. And I'd say it's the biggest entrepreneurial lesson that I had was, you could push a boulder up a hill with a whole lot of willpower, but the gravity's just going to pull it down. And instead of pushing something that's lukewarm liked, have the patience, the wherewithal, the perseverance, the security instead of the insecurity, to tinker and work on it, create, to obsess over it until it's loved.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of dialogue. That is a lot of dialogue. And, this is something I think Silicon Valley nails, is there's a tagline within Silicon Valley, make something people want. And your first version, the chances that it's going to be something that people want is very low. Maybe it's 10% chance your first version of something is going to be something people want. If you're an iconoclastic artist that's just like, I'm going to make what I want and I don't care about anybody else, then you can try that out and you can like brute force push that on the world, where you're just like, I don't care. I'm making what I'm going to make and everybody else is going to have to deal with it and it's going to find an audience. You can try it that way. But if you're coming from a place of service and wanting to be useful to your community, it is the exact opposite. You're like, well, where can I be useful? I've got this skill set. What do people want? What do they really like? Oh, that's interesting. Why did they like that? And they didn't like this other thing.
Yeah.
Why? And then you actually have the conversations. Why did you like that? What did you like about it? I mean, with Spotify releasing music, you can instantaneously see like, oh, this is where they're dropping out. Why did they like, what was interesting about that?
Right.
Oh, this song took off. This song didn't.
Yeah.
What is it about that?
Same with YouTube. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, perfect example. YouTube has even better analytics.
Yeah, more granular.
Where you can see like, oh, this is what people liked and this is what people didn't like. The downside is you can get an audience capture if you're only doing that. But the upside is you can really see, is this having an impact on people's lives? Or is this just a artistic indulgence of mine? And that can be beautifully, I think you can absolutely love the rhythm of an artistic indulgence, like the philosophy podcast. I've never looked at the numbers. Don't look at the analytics. It's just, hey, 1 in 10,000 people will find this interesting.
Great podcast to listen to, though. If anybody ever gets a chance, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah,
I really enjoy
it. Find all this stuff.
And they're short form, right?
It's very
10
short. 10 minutes.
It's
a
great.
day, yeah.
It's a great morning listen.
And people can listen to or find out all the stuff on my Instagram across all the different projects. But that's a artistic or at least a creative pursuit that I'm like, this ain't about numbers. This is the highest possible quality, and I don't care about the quantity of distilled principal thoughts and philosophy that I know 1 in 10,000 will find interesting. When I'm making music that I want people to use to be able to get into flow or decrease stress, improve mood, or making Magic Mind, dude, it's an obsessive. I mean, as soon as I sent some to it, it's like brutal, honest feedback. What'd you notice? Did you notice this?
Got you.
And it's constant dialogue.
So that first company that you founded, it was just something that you didn't obsess over, but you felt like it was something that
it
maybe
was
people
so
needed?
little dialogue. It was so much like, hey, people kind of like this. Now I'm moving to Austin. Now we're going to move to Palo Alto. Oh, now we need to move to San Francisco. A lot of perseverance, not a healthy purpose because it was financial engineering and ego engineering at the heart of them. But also it was man, I'm so afraid whether people like this or not. And it hurts so much when someone doesn't like it. I don't want to know.
Oh.
Let's just make more of it. Okay, that's kind of growing. People lukewarm like it. That's good enough. We'll raise more money and we'll figure it out later. We'll fix these problems. And it was like in Silicon Valley terms, it was a leaky bucket.
Yeah.
And so like we're just adding more water, adding more funding, expanding to more countries, but it was leaking through the bucket. And it was like, man, there are a lot of signs that people don't love this product. And as soon as we tried to charge for it, people would bounce over to Venmo or they'd use other tools. And that's a hallmark sign that people don't love your product if they aren't willing to pay for it. But it was such discomfort with uncomfortable truths that I didn't want to hear them. With Magic Money, it was like 2 years of, world, tell me you don't want this because it is so painful. And these things are a decade of pain if you do it, if you really do it sincerely, that I want to know as soon as possible to not do this idea. So for 2 years, it was just crazy patient.
So how did this idea come about?
Well, in the last company, I ended up sending myself to the ER, drinking 6 to 7 cups of coffee a day, Red Bulls, energy drinks, loved it. Every meeting, everything that I didn't want to do was like, let me start with another coffee or another Red Bull, and ended up sending me to the ER. Had no idea that too much caffeine was a bad thing. Ends up sending me to the ER with a heart condition that I still have to this day. My heart was beating at 175 beats a minute and had been for like 3 weeks. And my doctor ran all these tests, found that out, and they're like, we're going next door to the ER and we're going to have to do this procedure called a cardioversion, which is the paddles that you see in movies and TV shows where they shock your heart back into rhythm. So did that to me. And he was like, with your condition, you can't have more than half a cup of coffee a day going forward. And as like a true addict, I was like, there is no effing way I can get through a day on half a cup of coffee.
Right.
There's no way.
Right.
And he was like, he said this one thing to me. This is up in San Francisco. And he said this thing that'll forever be lodged in my brain. He said, have you ever tried green tea? It has this compound in it called L-theanine, which extends your body's absorption of caffeine over a longer period of time and dials down the body's stress response to where you don't have as much of a stress response to the caffeine that you're consuming. And I was like, wait, what? Caffeine spikes my stress? How are those related? And this L-thea stuff can extend the body's absorption over a longer period of time. Wait, what? And my engineering brain just went crazy down the rabbit hole of like, okay, I'm allotted half a cup of coffee. What else can I add to it? What else does nature and science give us to get the most out of my morning routine, to get the most out of that half a cup of coffee? And now it's 12 years later, but about 7 years after that, I had this stack of 12 things that was like, I was the nootropics guy in Silicon Valley. I had written a book on this topic at Airbnb through this network called Y Combinator. I had, through all the founders that I had backed, I was just like this nootropics expert. And this antenna was kind of going off of like, in terms of like waiting until there's something that people love instead of lukewarm, like there's 3 people that are ordering all of these 12 ingredients wholesale to a commercial kitchen in Burlingame in the South Bay of San Francisco. Like they're going through that much trouble to get it instead of like $14 a day down to like $3 a day for these 12 ingredients. And that 3 people grew to 7, then to 12. 12 became like 27 people ordering it to a commercial kitchen. It was just like a list of Amazon of things to buy on Amazon on Google Doc that said James's Magic Potion. And I was like, all right, if people are going through this much trouble, then there must be something interesting here. And maybe if I put a fun little brand universe around it, and got it in wholesale and put it in a little bottle, and we can get it down from $14 to about $3 a day for everybody. And it'll be a fun little Shopify project and see if the world really wants it. And that's my people ask like, what's my favorite ingredient of the 12 ingredients? All the time, I find myself saying time. Time is my favorite ingredient. Taking the time to where I wasn't that first company I mentioned, it was like, how do I take a shortcut to all these things that I want? Being my own boss or some financial milestone or having a bunch of employees building this thing that I have in my head. With Magic Money, it was like a complete antithesis of that. It was, how do I make sure people love this? How do I make sure this is done the right way? how do I obsess over everything? Like even the taste of like the obsession. We probably spent $700,000 just making it taste great.
Right.
Because I'm constantly having conversations with people, and now it tastes great. But the first 3 versions, people were like, the first 100 versions from my kitchen, but the first 3 versions that we would launch from our bottler, I was like, damn, people, I don't mind the taste because I'm getting 8 hours of flow from this, but that's okay. We got to improve it. We got to improve it.
Right.
And man, it's from the ER to now having this product that we've sold 25 million bottles, and it is it's Forbes actually wrote it as Silicon Valley's new morning elixir. And it is the number one, as of about 3 months ago, number one health shot in the country. And
I'm sure that I'm sure that folks in the music, well, regular folk have been seeing this, because I remember even before we met, I saw one of these bottles, or I saw these at Whole Foods. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting logo and package on it. And, but I didn't think about it. I didn't try it. And that's what it leads me to us meeting, where I was taking a tour of Lighthouse, and by the way, I don't know if I told you this, but it was like I canceled that tour about 5 times.
Yeah, you did mention that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
and
canceled
Lighthouse is this, talk about Senius, a cool space in Venice for creators and
very cool
makers
space.
of all kinds, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was getting a tour of the spot, and it was jumping that day. I had to ask the girl afterwards. I was like, is it always like this? Because if it's always like this, sign me up.
You know why I was jumping that day? It's because of Philosophy Friday.
Right. This is what I came to understand afterwards, which is great. I am getting this tour, and I'm about 5 minutes in. I get there late, and I hear somebody from across the room yell my name, Mauricio. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I see you, and you're darting my way. I get on my back foot because I have no idea who you are, but you're 6'4", and I'm like, nah. Where I grew up, you got a head on a swivel.
Yeah.
But you came up to me with such excitement and good energy, and for a moment, I'm like, do I know this guy? But you, like, I think you realized that I was trying to pick up whether I knew you or not, and you said, you don't know me, but I watch your podcast, and I'm a huge fan, and I love it, and I watched the episode with Charlie
I saw
Rocket.
you walking across the room, and I remember being like, that's Mauricio from the Manager's Playbook. Holy shit. I got to go say what up. And I'm in a meeting with 6-7 other people, and so funny because they had asked me to help.
No, there was like 15 people you were in a meeting with.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people, and they had asked me to help fundraise for this nonprofit endeavor. And I was like, every first Friday of the month, I host this thing called Philosophy Fridays at this place called Lighthouse. So if you want to meet, it could be right after that. And I was like,
fascinating.
I was like 50-50 whether I was going to do that meeting or not. But I was like, all right, well, I could maybe help them fundraise. It's a really cool cause. So let me take the meeting. And then, within 15 minutes, see you walk by, and I was like, I hopefully can help them, but this is why I was supposed to take this meeting today.
Wow.
Because I'm no joke. I almost hesitate to even mention we're a sponsor of the podcast, because it seems like there's like, hey, sponsor, I want to come on the podcast. But no.
Let's just to be very clear. We ended up doing this sponsorship, agreeing to this within about an hour. And if anybody knows how to like lock in sponsorship, it doesn't take 60 minutes to lock something in.
And it was because...
It was immediate.
It's because of what I'm about to say. It's like, dude, top 3 podcasts that I listen to.
Yeah.
So when I saw you walking across the room, I was like, holy shit.
But it was very symbiotic for me, because in my business, in this music industry, if I wanted to, today, I can pick up the phone and say, hey, this liquor brand, come and sponsor the podcast for $100,000. But I don't do that. I don't drink. And I don't think it's just not part of my ethos. It's part of my brand. So I told you as well, once I started, I was like, Magic Man, let me look into it. Because the girl who's giving me the tour, what's her name?
That would have been Sarah.
Sarah, right? Yes. She said, do you know James? I was like, no idea who that is. She's like, you should get to know him. And I was like, yeah, okay, I will. Sweet, right? And then you came afterwards, gave me your phone number, told me what Magic Mind was, and I looked you up real quick. I was like, oh, I'm familiar with the brand. And I'm like, oh, this is a drink. I'd like, maybe there's a further conversation as we're talking. And then in that text message thread, within 30 minutes or whatever it might be, all of a sudden we lock you in as a sponsor. But I go and I take a drink of this, and no joke, because when you talk about caffeine addiction, I'm probably drinking 2 or 3 coffees a day. And since starting to take Magic Mind, I'm not saying this because you're responsible.
I know this feels like I'm
not saying this because of
if I'm a listener, I'm doubting this stuff, but
100%. And
yeah.
I can see why, but I hope folks who watch this podcast, they can trust that I'm an honest guy. I have coffee every now and again just for the fun of it, but it's not because I need it. Because this is absolutely like helping me every single morning. The way that I'm dialed in and I'm focused when I take one of the max shots in the morning completely changed how I operate throughout the day and gives me such good level of focus. Also, I sleep better. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm coming off in a way, but it's just the truth.
Right before we hit record, I was like, yeah, the bottle is so small, so we can't put everything on there, and people just wouldn't believe us.
Right.
But it'll improve your sleep, and it's because the citicoline, one of the ingredients in there.
I've been like, yeah, let's be transparent. Like, you didn't always negotiate or said it's just once a week on a podcast, present it there. But I've been posting this on my stories, on my Instagram, left and right, because I'm like, this shit is so. I went with my trainer at 5:30 in the morning. He looked tired as hell. He showed up with a coffee. And I said, brother, tomorrow you don't bring that coffee. I'm going to give you one of these shots. And he had it. And within 15 minutes, he's like, this actually works. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Dude, anybody I give this to, these guys here in the studio, look at it. They're all, look.
Yeah, Austin, giving it. There we go.
Francisco, I gave these guys packs. They're like, yo, this is the truth. I'm like, yeah, it's no joke. I'm just so excited to, like, in my mind, my ego, in my mind, I'm helping introduce this to the music industry.
Dude, well, that's
so I'm so excited to do that.
You and Shangri-La at Rick Rubin's studio,
I'm not giving that one to Rick Rubin. I'm taking that one.
Way more people are exposed to you than on a weekly basis than Shangri-La. But yeah, it's been fun to see it pop up more and more, and you sharing it. Yeah, that's right. Rick Rubin's book right below. Wow, that is a powerful combo. What's this book? Virgil's
book. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
book, yeah.
The green is fitting. Yeah, I'll end this in 15 seconds of talking about Magic Mind, but it's the most over-researched drink on the planet. I was able, not just the time, but knowing how not to build companies, whereas Lukewarm it was like an obsession over, still continued to this day. Like, this is version 6 of our shots. And it's continually getting feedback, to where and this is a really healthy thing from, it's so interesting. People really love to antagonize businesses, business-minded people.
Yeah.
And antagonize like Silicon Valley.
Right.
And these are people just obsessively, compulsively just figure out what can I build for you? What do you need? What can I build for? What do you like a businessman in Birmingham? Same thing. He's like, what do you need? How can I help you? How can I? And in our town, we idolize the artist as if like they shouldn't be doing those things. But man, if you can marry those two, the capability with that curiosity of how can I be most useful? You'll never work a day in your life.
You're right.
And if you're the artist that's like, no, I'm just going to be a starving artist that makes these kinds of records and albums that I like, that, it doesn't get distributed. It's not on trend, and it's not getting a record label, and it's got to be independent.
Yeah, right.
People don't listen to this kind of music anymore.
Yeah.
Dude, the starving artist is one that's a myth. If you're meant to be the artist, then you'll flourish.
True.
You will flourish if that's what you're wired. If that's what you're wired to do, and there's
that's fascinating.
There's this that is a total myth that like if you're doing what you ought to be doing, you will thrive. Maybe you're only able to do it 20 hours a week right now, and you've got a day job, but there's a lot of time in the week, and the tools have made it so much easier to create. There's this crazy cool plugin called Gray Sound. That's an AI plugin that goes into Ableton or Pro Tools, and natural language is like talking to a producer. It's like add in reverb, make this sound like John Mayer guitar, make this guitar signal sound like John Mayer guitar, add in all of these, and just natural language. It's like, oh my God, that's like having an insanely talented sound engineer with you 24/7, and you're just naturally just typing into it. It's like the plugin I always wanted, just came across it like 2 weeks ago. I was like, this is kidding. So it's not like full on Suno, you're not doing anything. You're actually like talking to an AI little sound engineer that's making whatever you want. You might not even know the language of what you want, and boom, let's make it happen. And I'm like, to create is getting so much easier that everybody that wants to create now it's never been a better time.
Yeah.
So that like starving artist aspect is like a total myth, but it's also a choice if you want to go down that route where you're like, yeah, there's no commerce for the type of music I make because, well, people lukewarm like it. They don't love it. They don't love it well enough to pay for it.
That's exactly what I was thinking about when we were talking about your first endeavor.
And you're just like, I don't want the feedback.
You don't want to know. You're afraid of the feedback. Yeah.
And you don't want to take your 100% of responsibility of like, yeah, and people aren't listening to this, and I'm not able to make a living off of it because, well, you don't.
Every other reason except for you.
Except for you. Have you put yourself in a play 7 different live shows where no one shows up? Where 2 people show up, where you take the money from your waiting gig to book a venue and you lose $500. Have you done that 15 straight times? Have you taken the responsibility of like, how much would it really be to be an artist, independent artist in 2026 to go at this seriously? $250,000. I don't have $250,000. Okay, well then take your 100% responsibility. You're gonna have to raise it.
Yeah.
All right, can you raise it? If you can't command 17 or 25 investors around your vision, how the hell are you going to get 50,000 people
to listen? Right.
50,000 in a state, like maybe you think you've got dreams of like being in front of 50,000 people. If you can't get 19 people to write a check to invest behind your vision, how in God's name will you get 1 million people to listen to your music? Or, like I said, it's a choice of like, hey, 1,000 people listen to my music, and that's totally fine. And you can do that in today's world, and you have the day job. And maybe 30, 40 years in, because you got 2 choices, work harder, work longer. Maybe it's just a 20-year journey. And the whole like, there are no overnight successes. It's just a decade in the dark.
Yeah.
And then you come onto the scene, maybe in 2026, because there's so much, there's
maybe,
I don't know.
I don't know. I think you still got to.
Well, maybe it's 20 years.
Yeah.
But man, if you're doing what you're wired to do, then so be it. It's 20 years.
Well, let me pull on that thread a little bit, because you just said that, I've heard you say that it takes about, if you can get 34% of the way on the fundraising side, because you're an expert at fundraising, I would say. And so I think there's a lot of value in talking to the artist community or the managers or the aspiring executives who are trying to build a label of how to fundraise, right? So this 34% mark, I'd like you to drill down on that a bit more. Yeah,
I've raised over 150 million for different things, for different businesses, different endeavors, nonprofit endeavors that I've helped with, and the common theme I've helped, that's directly. And then I've helped founders of the 150 founders over the last 3 years. I've helped them raise over 500 million. And that includes the long tail of artist friends where I've helped them raise the 200 and the 250K, the label that we're going out to raise 2 million for. And it is the same pattern across all of it. It could be a $25,000 goal you have for a nonprofit cause, or it could be raising $250,000 for the food truck, or $250,000 for your independent artist venture. And it's the same pattern. And it's so beautifully simple and simplifying for anyone out there that's daunted by these numbers. Just get to 34%.
Why?
At 34%, let's say you're raising $1 million for a business, or $100,000 for a nonprofit cause. Once you get to 34%, 34,000 on the little thermometer, 34,000, whether you have a literal thermometer or it's just in people's heads, we've closed 350,000 towards our goal of $1 million. As soon as I say that sentence, you think, oh, this train's leaving the station. This thing's happening.
Is this
Wow.
for anybody? For family,
Anybody.
family, friends of
and
family?
In fact, you should be utilizing family, friends, go private, covert as you raise that first 34%. It's basically get to a third. And then once you get to a third, everything else is gravy train on biscuit wheels. It is so much simpler. Once you get to that 34%, the first 34%, stay close to people that you already know, that you know well, relationships maybe you've been building for years.
Right.
And if you haven't been building those, I'll tell you the best advice I ever got here in a second in creating. But if you haven't been building those relationships for a few years, that's part of that 10-year journey is building those relationships. And you mentioned the seniors that you broke into taking 6-7 years. That smaller, tight-knit, close group, before you go out and start smiling and dialing, it's kind of like sales talk before you build out a spreadsheet of like, all right, here are the 45 people I'm going to go to. Start with those 5, 6, 7, 8. Try to get to 34%. So let's say you're an artist and you want to raise 250 grand. Then you want to get to that first 85, the first 100K with the small network that you've been building over the last few years. And then once you're at 100, then you go out in the wider network. You have your friend Mauricio put you in touch. You have James put you in touch with these other people. When you get in touch with them and you say you've already closed 100, then it feels real.
Right.
But if you get in touch with somebody that's 1 degree away from you actually knowing them, directly knowing them, it's one of your friends' friends and you've raised 0 and you're raising 250K, it doesn't feel like that train. It feels like that train is off the tracks and isn't running. But if you go into that conversation and you've closed 90 grand of the 100, 250, it's like, oh, damn, okay, this is happening. This is real. And again, if you're daunted by those numbers, cut it down to the 34% that you're aiming to raise. And if you can't raise 90 from your friends and family, then that means that you've got to be building out that network.
90,000?
Yeah, 90,000 or 100,000. Then you have to expand that network. The best, I mentioned the best advice I ever got, the best advice that anyone has ever told me. And this goes in that rare bucket of generic. It applies to nearly all types of creation. I was in Cape Town, so I studied development economics, which is the economics of developing regions around the world. And I was working on the ground in the townships of Cape Town, and I was building out this, at the time, a startup to help nonprofits fundraise online. And this meeting with his founder in a cafe in Cape Town, and he's in his mid-30s, and he said to me, he goes, to build anything of significance, because I was very early in my entrepreneurial journey. He said, James, to build anything of significance, all you need is trust and a network. So if you have those two things, you can get everything else. If you've got trust and you've got a network, then you can fundraise for that idea. You can improve that idea. You can find a co-founder. If you're an artist, if you got trust and a network, you can find a great manager. If you're a manager, you got trust and network, you can find great artists. You can find great collaborators on every project. Your first recruits to your team, trust and a network. But then he followed it up with this banger where he said, but if you don't have one, then the other won't matter. If you've got trust, but you got no network and it's just your mom that trusts you, that's not very valuable. Good luck. If you've got a network, you graduated from Harvard Business School, but no one trusts you because the last 2 years, you kind of ticked some people off or you showed either shady behavior or you're not reliable. Trust isn't just like your spoken word. It's being reliable. Do you do what you say you're going to do? Right. And the trick there is if you find yourself making commitments and then bailing and people are calling you like a flake, make less commitments. Yeah. Make less commitments. Because if you can be the rare individual that does, and this really goes out to anybody earlier in their career. If you can be the rare individual that does what they say they're going to do, my God, the keys to the world are yours. Because you're 1 in 100. Because 99, you're nodding as I'm saying this, you probably know so many people that say things that they never follow up on, that they don't do. And it could be a high school best friend. It's just like flakes on the Friday night plans often. You lose trust. It doesn't matter what your network is. That network is useless. Yeah. Because when that person comes knocking, it's like, hey, I've got this project. Would you be down to help or invest? You'd be like, you blink slowly because you're like, this is where I have to flex my no muscles. No, I'm not going
I've
to
had to
invest.
do that a few times, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with some high school friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the best compliment I ever got was co-founder in Apt, the AI personality test career coach. By the way, that's like the TMP 50 or TMP 100 code to make it completely free. It's 5 to 10 minute quiz, gives you all major personality test results back. One quiz to rule them all. It's not like you take one 45-minute quiz and then your girlfriend's like, you should have taken this other one. It's one quiz, gives you all of the test results, and then it tells you all the careers that you're really wired for.
Very cool.
So it tells you like what you're really wired for instead of maybe the
thing that you
think
you're wired for. Yeah.
And like the adage there is like, if you're great at something you don't love, imagine how good you'd be at something you did love.
Yeah.
So if anybody's listening to this because they're wondering, should they be, I don't know, jumping into the music industry or making music or being their own manager. That's why I get so much value out of this, by the way, because I get to be my own manager. And man, I get so many insights from you on this. But the best compliment I ever got was from my co-founder in Apt, who said, man, you are so reliable.
Yeah.
I was like, I've never heard that kind of a assemblage of words before.
What'd that feel like?
As a compliment. You know, what's so funny is it was so novel to hear. Like, it's not something you, like as an 8-year-old, you set out to be so reliable. But I thought about this is like brilliant Harvard grad, one of the best founders I ever worked with. I backed him in a company that failed. And by the way, for any founder that thinks, or any creator that thinks if you fail, like you've killed that network. No, for the people that matter, they don't mind. For the people that mind, they don't matter. The people that matter, they see you do it with purpose, persistence, sincerity, and it doesn't work out, they're going to back you again. And the people that bail because you didn't make it with, you don't want to build a relationship with those investors, friends, collaborators anyhow. So Tomas said that to me, and I was, to be real, for 10, 15 seconds, I was like, what does he mean? That's reliable. You're the most reliable person I've ever met. And he said it a couple times, like, dude, I know I say this all the time, but you are so reliable. And now I take it as a father, as a friend, as a collaborator, as a co-founder. Like, man, there's nothing I'd rather be.
Yeah, than reliable. I mean, high praise for sure. Especially when you got a family.
Right. Like, I mean, who wants a father that's like, has some glimmers of genius or brilliance and then is unreliable?
Right.
That even just saying that out loud, that's heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to work with artists, some of which have gone through my mind earlier in the conversation, and on the management side that I've met on the management side, like in steak dinners here on Melrose and the managers there. That might be the saddest combination in humanity. Most heartbreaking combination. If you didn't have talent, then maybe it doesn't really matter. But if you see these glimmers of brilliance and you match that with unreliability, it's, man, what is the world missing out on?
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, because you're the only one who gets to see it, but the world doesn't get to share in those gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know how rare those glimmers are, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And again, the easiest way to become reliable, make less commitments, and when you say it, you become that commitment.
That's very real. That's very real. There's been times where I've made too many commitments and I realized I was overextending myself. And I think a big part of this business is, especially in the early days, for those who are trying to break, they have to be, or they feel they have to be great at making music. They have to be great at making content. They have to be great at marketing content. They have to understand their brand. But I think all those things are a process, is what we've been talking about. Don't rush to the finish line. Be ready for that marathon. And if you're not great at the music, be honest with yourself. Focus and work on
Get that
thing.
feedback. Go ask.
Go ask people. I mean, you can, even if it's under a burner account, or even as an artist, you put out your first song or your first 2 songs and nobody listens. It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
It's beautiful.
Go back. Yeah, you have
You
information.
now experience.
Yes, you've experienced.
You're on your way to having it all.
Yes. The information is there for you to proceed and continue to grow. And focus on that thing, right? Along the journey, understand these other skills as well. I mean, when you put out a song, you're going to put it out to market. So you by default, you're going to have to learn what marketing is and what works and what doesn't. So you're going to learn that in tandem. But I think that making too many commitments to all these things immediately is what burns a lot of these.
Oh, yeah. I think about this all the time in terms of commitments. And this could be, like you said, the 5 different areas that you've got to become a master at if you're an independent artist or independent partnership with your manager. And there's 5 different areas you got to become a master at. But that's very similar. You want to be in the NBA? You're going to have to master your footwork. You're going to have to master speed. You're going to have to master your endurance. You're going to have to obviously master shooting. You're going to have to master defense, at least at the professional level. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't be unprofessional at any one of those.
Right.
And what's the average time span to be a professional on all 5 of those? That's probably 15. Maybe if you're really, really a really fast learner, maybe it's 10 years.
Yeah.
So if in the root of all frustration is mismanaged expectations. So if you're frustrated in a career as any type of creator.
Sorry, it took me a second to take that one in. That's a great one.
And
Say that again?
The root of nearly all frustration is mismanaged expectations.
Yeah.
So you thought it was going to be you deciding you quitting your job and 3 years and it happening. And guess what? It might be 7 more. I'll tell you the upside, the benefit of the world we live in now, especially the world where there's no kingmaker, queenmaker anymore. It's like especially in founding companies. Like 20 years ago, you could get funding and none of your competitors got funding. Now everybody can get funding. Now it's with AI and you can build it, in 3 weeks.
Right.
And it's the same as the music industry where there just is no. Chris Senekute was on here saying like there is no playbook anymore. Mm-hmm. Like. And whenever someone develops one, 6 months later, it's a new one. There's no one that's going to just be like, all right, Whitney Houston, we're going to get her on Oprah, and then we're going to have
red button and it goes. Yeah,
exactly. And then we're going to have #1 single, and the whole world know who she is in 8 weeks. Those days are gone, and there's a benefit a huge benefit to the world right now, where you do have to become a master of 5 different things instead of just a master of just your one thing. But in the world of commitments, there's a phrase that I've been saying a lot lately is do very little and do it big.
What's that mean?
Don't spread yourself across 5 different things. Maybe it's on the social side, dude, I'm always using the text thread. I literally almost have it like a mental copy and paste of, I wish I could. I'm just trying to practice the art of undercommitting right now. I wish I could, but I just have to start undercommitting to new things right now because I'm stretched so thin. And people are like, man, I like that phrase, and practice the art of undercommitting. Right now, over the next 2 months, I'm just in a mode of practice the art of undercommitting to new things. If I can make it on Friday, I'll let you know. And that phrase really, like, people are like, shit, I need to start doing that, practicing the art of undercommitting. But
correct.
the other aspect, that's on the social side. On the professional side, it's all right. Like right now for Apt, for example, for Apt is getting really, really good at the Facebook cost of acquisition algorithm and just understanding the cost of acquisition funnel. It's not building out a whole lot more on this side of Apt or building out like, okay, we're going to recruit more or we're going to fundraise. It's like maniacal focus on the cost of acquisition, specifically on Instagram. It's like all eyes on deck on that little thing. Do very little and do it big. It's like we're going to do this very little slither of things And we're going to do it really big. We're going to get this marketing funnel. It's with Magic Mind, same thing. It's how we've taken it to 100 million sales. It's like we did one thing for 5 years, this one small little 2-ounce bottle before we expanded to Magic Mind Max and Magic Mind Free and the sleep shots. We did one thing, do very little and do it big. Maybe it's just getting good at releasing the music before you ever think about marketing. In the first year and a half of Open State, and this is after the Burner brand, it was like, great, I kind of know a little bit about the Spotify algorithms. I kind of know a little bit about the space that I'm going after, but I'm just going to get really good at releasing one song a week, every week, for 6 straight months. And it was just build out the catalog, and that was it. Maybe a tiny bit focus on marketing, but it was like, I'm going to do very little, and it's just get really good at the process of about 15 hours a week to release a new song every week. So I'm not going to think about content. I'm not going to think about any live gigs. I mean, opportunistically, if a little wave comes, ride it, sure. But it was like, do very little and do it big.
Building systems around this thing.
Yes. And then now I've got the release side. Exactly. It's the system is like, all right, now I got that plate spinning, and it takes very little attention to keep it spinning. Now I'm going to spin this other plate of building out the content side of things. And that is a brand new, like, do very little and do it big. Like, that's like, I'm trying 25 things a week. And it's like, oh, this didn't work, this worked, this didn't work, this worked, this didn't work. And honestly, it's way more, this didn't work. And still just figuring out, I haven't gotten that plate spinning. I'm like, great, this is the new plate to get spinning. And by God, I mean, it's everything, every artist in 2026 is feeling. It's like, this is a completely different muscle. But I'll say the upside of 2026, like a reframing is, in 1996, when maybe there's a Kingmaker, instead of getting really good at building content in 2 years, I told myself it's going to be 2 years of getting tweaking and figuring out what works for the content, the right, assessment of the right expectations. Like,
I told myself the same about this pod. 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. That's like on a side that many of my friends that are artists are like, I'll dabble in that. It's like, no, it's a full-time job for 2 years.
Go
to figure it out.
Yeah.
To iterate. And I think one of the things that switched for me where I got excited about it was when I started to think like in yesteryear, and if this was 1992, I'd have to tour dive bars for 2 years, be away from my kids, sleep in a van, if not a bus, and constantly just exposed to the elements for 2 years. Like, dude, I'll take this all day, every day of tweaking, iterating. All right.
It's a great perspective.
Put out some content that, got no views and had whatever, had like 1,000 views. That's 1,000 lives touched. That getting 1,000 people to a show in like, Des Moines.
Yeah.
that would be so hard. So the other side of it of today that's so beautiful is if you can take the 10 years, maybe it takes 15 to get to the professional level of all of these things that it requires to get to the professional level of to be a pro basketball player. If you want to be a professional and it's going to be a 15-year journey, then one, it's very doable. And two, what's so beautiful about 2026 is you get to own it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
The beauty of that is you get to create this wave that then you get to ride for, if you want to do this for 30, 40, 50 years, you get to ride that wave for 30, 40, 50 years.
But if you are fundraising, you have to give up a percentage of ownership when you're talking about.
I mean, owning the direction, the economics get split. I mean,
yeah.
Any Facebook ad, you're giving economics to Facebook. So yes, the economics get split, but you own your master. You get to own your work. You get to own the vision. You get to own everything you release, everything you don't release, everything that every cadence you want to release under. I mean, I think Aphex Twin has like 11 different aliases that he releases under.
Who?
Aphex Twin.
Aphex Twin?
Do you know Aphex Twin?
No.
It's a great electronic artist.
Okay.
Kind of like there's a lot of lore around Aphex Twin.
Okay.
And
shit, I'm going to learn about him now.
and rabbit holes upon rabbit holes upon rabbit holes,
Yeah.
because he's like Voldemort of electronic music. Like, just like
Okay.
so much mystery, so many different aliases, unlike anything else. And yeah, he's a freak, and makes music under this alias that's accessible, under this alias that's not accessible. Craziest, glitchiest stuff that he just wants to make, and he's a few of the aliases are under labels, but I look at that, I'm like, that is someone that gets to release constantly, and in the music that you can make today, like if you own it, then you get to release. You could have 11 different aliases if you want. Wouldn't benefit you on the algorithms, but you could have crazy amount of freedom, that you wake up in 10 years of becoming a master of all of these different aspects. And man, the gold you get from that is way better than the kingmaker that made you king in 1992 and then pulls the rug out from under you in 2002, and you can't put out any music anymore. I mean, the win is so much bigger in 2026, so much bigger. And people talk about it as if the win is so much smaller. Because of the economics.
I like to always push back on that, and I do
So
my best to
wrong.
reframe that entire conversation. I think that happens a lot. Some of the things we talked about, that this isn't necessarily your domain that you should be an expert in, or this isn't your purpose. So you find reasons as to why the thing isn't working for you, and the music business is in disarray. The honest truth is that there's more revenue coming into the music business than at any other time ever. And there's more opportunity for you to be able to create. You just gave a great example. You can make music, you can put it out. You don't have to go and hit the roads and hit dive bars in a beater, going from town to town. God knows where you're going to sleep. You're lucky if it's in a hotel. You're lucky
losing money for 2, 3, 4 years of touring.
At best, you're breaking even. I mean, that happens today too, but there are different ways to be able to operate. And that's on an independent level back in the day, right? Major label, you don't own your masters. You sign a deal, 1996, guess what? You're getting what's called a royalty rate. And it was superstar deal back then, is you're getting 18% of that. And then you got to recoup against that 18% times 5 to make it 100, right? Or times 6, whatever it may be. $1 million, you're in debt forever. I mean, there's numerous of stories of artists who have sold their masters or given up their masters to a record label. That was the only way to, quote unquote, blow up and become a superstar.
Right.
So I think short-term memory, or just weren't around in that time to know that was the thing. We can talk about that. We're a little bit older and we can understand that's what it was before the economics. But today, again, it's reasons to frame how things aren't good right now in this particular space, which is an interesting part. And I want to leave with this because I think it's important. But that ties into this mental health thing that I think a lot of people seem to talk about more openly than ever before. But I love how you talk about it. You don't necessarily talk about mental health because that is more so the crisis and post of when something happens. You talk about mental wealth. I'd love for you to talk to me a bit about that.
Yeah. I'm glad we are openly talking about it more today than ever, but I think we're still talking about it in the wrong ways. I think we should be talking about mental health in the same way we talk about physical health today. Because right now we talk about mental health like we talked about physical health 50 years ago, where we only brought it up when someone's going wrong. Mental health should be talked about like we talk about investing in anything. A career, a side hustle, a craft, and your education. And it should be talked about, I call it mental wealth, where it's something you're investing in on a daily basis so that it's resilient and has a cushion for when something does go wrong. So it's not something you bring up or you talk about with your group of friends around someone going through a tough time that's, severely in debt to continue this metaphor. And it's something that you talk about in terms of health that you're all investing in, that you personally are investing in on a daily basis. There's 5 buckets that I wrote this. I mentioned Hacker News, and I wrote this essay maybe 6-7 years ago. And it's by far the most read essay I've written. And it's called Mental Wealth. And I start by talking about how my sister, when I was 15, my sister that was 19 at the time, she took her own life. And she was struggling from, that's okay. And I can talk about it so effortlessly now because it's actually quite, I know it's so helpful that it ends up being energizing to talk about because I know it's so helpful for people. The topic of mental health is something that I've thought about intimately for now 25 years and have had to think about it intimately. Multiple family members with mental health issues. My sister taking her life when I was 15, and the health issues being very genetically. I had a large chance of getting some of the getting some of the health issues that sadly many of my family members suffer from. And so at 15, I was like, is this going to happen to me? 16, I was like, is this going to happen to me? At 17, psychosis typically sets in from 18 to 22 in individuals. And so I was like, man, I better take this really seriously. I better think about everything that I can do to prevent it. And that's when we had very little knowledge about these things.
Yeah.
But fast forward to today, there's 5 really simple buckets to approach a daily investment in our mental health to where, man, you can get hit by whatever unexpected event you didn't think was going to happen in your career or in relationships. And you're like, wow, okay, I've got the resiliency to take that in. Not hanging by a thread. And not only does every little knock and shock of life throw you off, but you certainly can't handle anything major. And then you go around just like trying to burlap the world because you're like, I can't handle anything uncomfortable. I can't handle it because you're hanging on by a thread. Man, when you are well seated and established in a great routine habit of investing in your mental wealth, dude, you can handle anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the first bucket is sleep, and it goes in this order: sleep, diet, exercise, stress management, and then exogenous compounds, things like magic mind. That's 5th on the list. Like that's the last thing to think about. The first is sleep. You could have like the most kick-ass 30 years straight, 4 hours of meditation every day. If you're sleeping an hour and a half each night, that wouldn't matter.
Yeah, it's all for nothing.
If you got the best job and everybody's just in love with the work that Mauricio does, but you're tired all the time, dude, you're not going to appreciate it. So sleep, very simple. I already mentioned the best of practical biological advice I think anybody could receive, which is wake up every morning at the same time each day.
Right.
And then the second one is try to get your 8 hours. It's fine if you work till 4 a.m., go from 4 until noon, get the blackout shape, really prioritize it. Know that that's way more important than the car you drive. So put in whatever resources you need to put into getting great sleep. And do the calculus of like, what is the time that I could wake up every morning and, in that time and keep that rhythm every day. Second is diet. And this impacts the first, any alcohol. So one drink can impact sleep negatively and decrease sleep quality by up to 23%. 2 drinks before bed can decrease sleep quality by up to 34%. So you think you're getting 8 hours, but you're getting 6.
Interesting.
You're losing those 2 drinks, and you don't even get a great buzz off of 2 drinks. And you're going to get rid of an hour and a half, 2 hours of sleep for just honestly, a lot of it's just the social pressure of, oh, friends are drinking. So I'll do another beer. You can do that, but you're kicking 2 hours of sleep out the window when you do that. That second drink. So sleep, diet, the second part of diet is as much as you can. And this is like a broken record on podcasts these days. This was 6-7 years ago when I wrote this. And as much as you can, no processed foods. Processed foods now are linked to countless numbers of cancers. There are even things like sucralose and artificial sweeteners, which we don't use with Magic Mind, that stuff will destroy your microbiome, make you crave. So artificial sweeteners will make you crave sweeter things. So you're going to get in this doom loop of like craving sweet things. And to get artificial sweeteners, you're going to have to eat processed foods. To get the sweeteners, you're going to eat processed foods that you're craving, and you're just in this doom loop of craving more and more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
So processed foods, there are a whole host of reasons to avoid them, but the biggest one is the artificial sweeteners that end up showing up in processed foods that then put you in the doom loop of craving sweeter and sweeter things.
Like what kind of foods?
I mean, anything that has a nutritional panel is a processed food. So Magic Mind's a processed food, a bag of chips, processed food, anything you're getting, technically anything that has any steps to creating that meal. Like really technically speaking, you make a salad, that's now processed food. But if you make the salad, you know what's in it. You go to P.F. Chang's and you get a salad, you have no idea what's really in it. And now they list off the number of calories, and that, chicken salad you think is healthy at P.F. Chang's is 1,300 calories. You're making a salad at home, you at least know what's in it.
Right.
But it's hardly the salads that people should worry about. Though it's the processed foods like cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
I mean, just the foods that we know, okay, this has a lot of chemicals in it. Making it at home though, make a cheeseburger at home and you feel a lot better about it. So sleep, diet, exercise. Simplest exercise that anybody can do. Go walk for an hour.
Go walk, yeah.
Go walk for an hour. Moves your entire body, gets blood flow to every part of you. And you can, if you need to, bring your phone and text friends.
Yep.
Listen to a podcast. But walking for an hour just gets the blood flowing. That also is so helpful for creativity. So 70% of the brain is wired for movement. So if you're sitting in front of a desk trying to get creative, that's the last thing you want to do when you're thinking to yourself, what do I need here to solve this problem? Create a problem for work, or whether you're making music, or whether you're a manager and you're trying to work through a challenging goal you've set for you and your artist. Get out, move the body. 70% of the brain is wired for movement. In fact, on that movement topic, one of the greatest reasons to play an instrument or garden or cook is that the neuroscience around this has become really clear in the last 2 years, that the optimal neuroscience for neurochemistry for satisfaction comes from work we do with our hands. So you can get dopamine and serotonin from different things. You can get some dopamine from working out. You can get some serotonin from eating chocolate. But to get dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, this third neurochemical, and these three create the neurochemical cocktail for satisfaction, for feeling satisfied. To get those three things, one of the best ways of getting those, all three of those, and one of the best ways to lead to directly to the neurochemistry of satisfaction is doing work with our hands. So, like I said, it could be playing an instrument for 7 minutes. There's no goal other than the neurochemical satisfaction you're going to get from doing that act. It could be going out and playing a sport. It could be gardening. It could be cooking. But man, once I saw that science of optimal the neurochemical satisfaction can be optimized for whatever, even within 10 minutes, for whatever you're sitting at a desk. I've got a keyboard right next to my desk. That can be activated through movement, and specifically movement of our hands. It was like, man, my relationship with creating changed radically. I was like, man, I want to play a note or two or 10 or 500 and make a song just because I'm going to get the fruits of that right now. It's not about what is this song going to become. It's not about, all right, if I get better, what is this going to look like in a live performance? It is none of that. It is literally sitting down and playing Uno with my daughters. I'm like, dude, I'm going to be moving my hands, putting a puzzle together. So movement is directly tied to turning on your entire brain, and specifically movement and work we do with our hands is the optimal movement for satisfaction. And then the last one is our relationship with exogenous compounds, which is just a fancy way of saying those external things we put in our body. It could be coffee, it could be cigarettes, it could be Magic Mind. Could be good things. It could be bad things. But that's the fifth thing on our list of managing one's mental wealth. And
Cigarettes?
I wouldn't add a lot of nicotine on its own can be a powerful drug for focus, but it builds up a tolerance and an addiction within 8 days, radically fast. So there's some literature around moderate use of nicotine for focus. And you laugh when I mention, and I don't recommend cigarettes, but when people are reaching for anything to put in their body, cigarettes, or it could be an illicit drug, their goal is to manage their mental health.
Yeah, no. I laugh because I didn't, when we're talking about mental wellness, I didn't expect for you to say cigarettes, but as you explain it, it does make sense to me because if, I've 20 years off and on smoking cigarettes.
Well, I only mention it because people find, I do not mention it because I recommend it hands down and underscore that things like moderate use of caffeine, moderate use of Magic Mind. But there are many things that people put in their bodies to manage their mental health.
Yeah.
Some much better than others.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That one's not the, yeah, exactly. But I hear what you're saying.
Like when you would reach for a cigarette, it wasn't for
half the time
doing it for your best friend back home that wants you to do it.
No, exactly. More times than not, it would be, you reach for a cigarette because maybe you're stressed a little bit. But other times I would reach for a cigarette because I need to lock in on something, and I would find focus. And I'm not suggesting that that's a good use of how to gain focus, because the truth is, I feel horrible after, and it always feels terrible.
Oh, and I'd feel locked in with 6 or 7 cups of coffee,
right?
And then afterwards, no idea, crazy crash, and my cortisol will be elevated long after that meeting is over.
Yeah.
So I'm stressed out long after that task is done.
Right.
And have no idea that that's the hangover that I'm dealing with because of that coffee that I chugged because I was in a meeting I didn't want to be in. Same thing with smoked cigarettes before. I was prescribed Adderall, and man, I would I've taken it probably 15 times in my life, and I'm so thankful that it would give me headaches because I was like, I can't take this. This was in college. So this is about 20 years ago when I was prescribed it. And I'm so glad it gave me headaches because I just couldn't take it. Couldn't get on that train that friends of mine would get on. And I've worked with people, and I've had bosses that were on Adderall. And it's very easy to spot. Mm-hmm. They get dry mouth, and so they start moving their mouth around. They're chugging and drinking a lot of water. But they would think a meeting is going well. And everybody else is like, oh my God, getting bulldozed. And anytime that I would interact with a boss or a coworker that was on a lot of Adderall or Vyvanse, these prescription drugs, I'd be like, oh God, I can tell anything I say right now, they're not going to listen to it. The worst part is they thought the meeting would go well, just leaving all this carnage in their wake. And I'm sure there's some listeners out there that have had experience with this where they're like, yeah, the 2, 3, 4 years, a close friend was addicted to Adderall for 7 years. And he would say like, man, I would think that meeting or that day or the business was going well. And everybody, when I look back, was like distancing themselves from me.
No sense of reality.
Right. And how they felt had nothing to do with how it actually was.
Jeez.
Yeah. But the ingredients in Magic Mind, everybody could buy these on their own. If you want to limit impulsivity, one of my favorite ingredients in there, outside of time, I'll say Bacopa monnieri is phenomenal for locking in. Bacopa monnieri, it's an Indian herb, and it's given to kids and adults way before they'd give them pharmaceuticals in India and China. It's this natural herb that decreases impulsivity by up to 50%. So you're just like not reaching for your phone. You're not reaching for social media. You're just like locked in. Mm-hmm. Or citicoline. The downside of nicotine is you build up tolerance within 8 days and an addiction. So you require it afterwards to get back to just maintenance mode. But citicoline is phenomenal. It's a great alternative. You don't build up any tolerance to it. It's not addictive. There's outside of the minimal caffeine in Magic Mind, there's nothing addictive in it. And choline, which is found in eggs, you can get the same amount of choline, just eat 6 eggs in the morning. But it improves blood flow to the brain. When you drink coffee, it's a vasoconstrictor. It decreases blood flow to the brain.
Right.
So you have less oxygen to your neurons. So you're having less, or to your brain cells. So you're having less, it decreases your capability for what's called lateral thinking. It's the academic term for creativity. So you drink a lot of coffee, you drink Red Bulls, drink a lot of caffeine, it's going to decrease your creativity. It's going to decrease your ability to have, like I said, what's called lateral thinking. If you want to increase it, you want to improve blood flow to the brain. Citicoline, which is naturally, like I said, choline is naturally found in eggs. And it's in Magic Mind. So equivalent of 6 eggs is in Magic Mind that improves blood flow to the brain. And it improves your REM sleep later that night. That's one of the reasons you get much better sleep with Magic Mind. It's 12 hours later, it improves your REM sleep because of that improved blood flow to the brain. And dude, I could spend 5 hours talking about Magic Mind ingredients, but there are so many better things, or people can just look up Mental Wealth, that essay. There's so many better things.
We'll make sure we put a link in the description.
Yeah. And there's some pretty awful things people do to manage their mental health.
Mental health and mental wealth. Well, I think a lot of people are going to get some good things from this conversation for their mental wealth.
We
James,
touched on a lot.
We did. And we can go on and on. And I want to make this a habit of bringing you onto the podcast because I find you to be a fascinating human being. I appreciate the relationship that we've developed over the last few months that we've gotten to know each other. You've given me a lot of game, and I know that you've given a lot of game to the folks at home who are listening to this podcast. And I just want to say thank you for spending the time with, us folks in the industry.
Oh, please.
In the music business,
Thank you. I've said it a million times on this pod, but thank you for everything you put out there. I know not only have I learned a lot from it, dude, I think this thing is a force.
Oh, man,
and I think it's just getting started. So thank you, Mauricio.
From your lips to God's ears. Appreciate you, James.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, man. As the official music publishing rights partner of TMP, Cosign is helping us bring the TMP Music Publishing Playbook to life. Check out the new playlist on YouTube and socials to learn how music publishing actually works. And don't forget to apply to Cosign so you're not missing out on money you could be earning from your music. Appreciate you for tapping in. My name is Mauricio Ruiz, host of the Manager's Playbook, and I'll see you next week.